Welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, and I do thank you for tuning on in today. I guess look in my comment section, a little snafu on my timing. I put the thing at 5 o'clock today, but for some reason it had rung it up as earlier, and I didn't know that, so sorry about that. No one let me know on that. But thank you guys for hanging in here with me nonetheless, as we have our Seattle Seahawks here now a week through training camp. Got a day off today. Nothing really going on today, letting them bodies rest up just before they're going to be getting the pads on. And so I figured that it's a good time as ever here to just kind of cover a little bit of the first week. And I'm really not going to be as much, I think, performance-based on this as maybe some might be on this, not because there are some things that I think are going to be notable to talk about, which we will hear in just a second. It will be a little bit more of some cut-ups of some of the players and what they're discussing, and just a little bit of a breakdown with them in regards to what they're seeing early on, what they're feeling, just a general sense of what they're getting about what's going on there. There has been some good performances as well in there, as I said, that we want to note as I do think it is something that you want to see as opposed to the other side of it, which could be, for instance, with a guy like Sam Darnold, who's had a very good training camp here early on here. A little bit of a rocky start with the OTAs by some reports, and Mike McDonald put some cold water on that, saying, no, everything's actually okay. We're having to take risks. It's red zone drills, and sure enough, as we get into training camp at the start, he's looked really good, capable of working within this offense, the confines of this offense, and also doing some off-script stuff by all notes that we're hearing from, and using a little bit of the improvisation when the stuff that is on time isn't quite there or looking right. So Darnold, by all metrics, has had a very good start to his camp, which is just what we wanted to hear, of course, is that he's coming in and he's taking the opportunity. Even yesterday, we had Bob Condotta, Seahawks reporter, says in terms of practice, it was a really good day for Elijah Arroyo, I'll say it right, who had 2 touchdowns during an early goal line drill and a half dozen other catches sprinkled in throughout. A.J. Barner also had a touchdown in the goal line drill. Sam Darnold, I thought, had his best day overall. So stacking good days, building upon yesterday being the last day of practice there, his best day overall may be there at that point. So just what we want to hear. It's not to take away that this is now, we know Sam Darnold's going to be just like he was last year. We're going to get the best version of Darnold. It's not to say that, but it is to say that he seems to be in alignment kind of close to where he was last year as far as things still feeling kind of locked in general terms, and him comfortable to this new offense and him kind of sliding right in there. We've heard about him working out with some of the receivers out there for a couple of days in California, which was cool to hear as well. By all measurements, this guy seems to be a real leader, but good. This is what we wanted. You don't want any quarterback controversy to begin camp. You don't want, Sam's struggling. And that's what I was saying last year, only it was Sam Howell. So you can say this at times even on practice fields where they're throwing to air. Arroyo is showing out really well. Sounds like the team is holding true to what they said that they were going to do with him, which is they were looking to move him out as the next receiver and have him operate in that way, which was nice. So he is doing what they said they were going to use him as in a lot of ways. Still be an H-back. Even Mike talked about having him as an inline guy too as well. But he has stood out in camp for size, for the speed, and how he can move out there on the football field. So that's a good, encouraging sign for our Seattle Seahawks as far as you hear from that. The offensive line has been hard to measure, of course, before we get on the pads, much like the defensive line. It does sound like there's a lot of chippiness and that the intensity has already been ratcheted up. So it's good to hear that we're getting a nice hard training camp. That's what you want on this. You want these guys going at it toe to toe. You don't want it soft. You don't want it some just gentle spa-like situation where everybody's just so busy protecting each other that they aren't also trying to drive as hard as they can to make themselves the best version of each other and how they practice. And the real feeling that you get, there was a tete-a-tete the other couple days ago where you were hearing about how Derek Hall and Josh Jones, the newly signed tackle by the Seahawks this offseason, we're having a back and forth throughout practice. And as Leonard Williams talked about it, he said, this is something that you could kind of see coming along, and that it was going to happen at some point or another. And sure enough, Leonard Williams spoke a little bit about it, but then Jaron Reed also spoke about it And then eventually Derek Hall throws Jones, and Jaron Reed said he had to get out of the way because he had thrown him so far into his path where he was trying to rush the passer. Listen to Jaron talk about that.
We was rushing right beside each other, and I actually had to get out of the way because, like, when he threw him right in the path when he rushing, so I had to just move, and, of course, it turned up after that. It's pretty sweet. It looks even better on film, too. They were chirping all practice, so we knew something was going to happen.
So they're going out. The pads aren't even on, and you got Derek Hall throwing people around. There seems a lot of praise, too, for Derek Hall, and the way that people are talking about how he's looked is he is in his best shape, which is super encouraging to hear. You also had hoped when you had brought in DeMarcus Lawrence that you had gotten in a guy who his skill set, who he is as a player, how he wins throughout his career, so very closely echoed to Derek Hall. And you thought, man, if you're looking at Derek Hall trying to turn into the best version of himself and looking at what Lawrence has done through his career, saying, that's probably the best version of what you can be. You can ascend on into that, maybe even a little bit better. I'll even give maybe a little more credit on maybe having even a little bit maybe more upside. But let's also remember Lawrence, too, was a first-round pick, so he's not chopped liver when it comes to the talent department of things. But they both really exclusively win with the power, with the length, I'm going to get after you every play. And Lawrence has got a little more refinement to his game. There's a little bit more of technician angles to what he does. But it does stand out that you're hearing the players talk about how this is going to be a good back and forth here between these two. I think Derek Hall said that, he looks at him almost like the brother he didn't have. I'm sure that Lawrence looks at him and sees a lot of his game in Hall, and a lot of the mentality is how he goes about it. It was funny listening to Leonard Williams talk about it, as you got the impression here that Derek Hall has kind of got a little bit of a bully feel to him a little bit as he walks through the locker room a little bit. And then now he gets checked a little bit by the old dog who's having none of that.
I see a lot of D-Law.
That wasn't the one. Let me get the right one here.
D Hall's like one of those like aggressive mentality type of guys, and like sometimes I wouldn't say bully, but like for lack of better terms, I would just use that word. Sometimes he's like the bully that likes to walk around and stuff like that. But then when he runs into D Law, he's like doesn't take that type of stuff, So he finally like met somebody that can clash back with him.
So Peds of a pod, cut from the same cloth, same kind of player. And if Derek Hall can maybe now even further get this development kicking forward now more, not that it hasn't so far. But I think where the actual benefit from Lawrence could come into play real majorly here could potentially be as much in how Hall maybe can come forward in the run game and how he defends the run, how he sets the edge, his awareness as he's setting that edge sometimes and the ball carrier is rolling around him. Some of this may be just inherent to who he is or who he isn't as a player, but it can help having a guy like this to maybe help him round out that final fashion of his game to become whatever is going to be the final form here for Derek Hall as, he does go now into year 3 and we start to see the take shape and form. It takes a little while for edge rushers to get to that final form. Some positions like running back, I think you can jump out right from the gate and be really good instantaneously. Receivers that way too. With edge rusher, it can take a little bit of time. And another place that really will help here too is a guy like Lawrence being able to show Hall how to practice right. Not that Hall wasn't already a really good practice player by all accounts, but just that it can't hurt to have the best drill player that Mike McDonald has ever seen in his life working next to him. You would hope that would be a little bit of an added benefit here to Derek Hall and progressing that game forward. And if he can come a little bit more forward, if Hall comes a little bit more forward, this just bodes that much better for this edge rush, especially considering that we do have Uchenna Nwosu still injured and still looking like he is going to be injured here for at least the foreseeable future, probably working their way into regular season games. Yikes. Not good. And that is, unfortunately, the bad part of this that we got to talk a little bit about here, which is that the injury situation has been one that hasn't been horrible, hasn't been god-awful, but we have been nicked a little bit here before we've even gotten into pads as we're waiting on Hankins. He should come back. He's a vet. They're managing him. You're not worried about that situation at all, of course. But you do have here now in Uchenna still the lingering effects of whatever went on last season, and it does become concerning because you worry about the fact that maybe there's something here a little bit more long-term if he's had this much time here to kind of get over this injury, which wasn't a torn ACL or a ripped ligament, at least by the accounts that we were told. and yet still not able to necessarily come back at full health. Maybe this is going to open the door to the Hawks looking to have to get an edge here now at this point. We'll have to see on that. I know that they also like the kid that they have in-house. They've transitioned to an inside linebacker a little bit who can do a bit of both those things. So maybe they feel like they still got enough there to make it happen and that Uchenna can come back sooner than later. The other injury, of course, was the one that we talked about yesterday, which was McIntosh going down to a torn ACL, and that is a tough blow, but that was probably the deepest position that you had on your ball club, running back. That is the position that you could sustain a loss if you happen to have one. And so George Holani rises back in as the fourth now, and you still have a pretty good stable there of running backs and what you're set up to be able to do as we go into the regular season at this point. But it does hurt with McIntosh because he was a effective player last year in the little bit of times that he got some action. But injuries have been a bit of part of what's had to deal with him in his first year and now here in his third year. Hopefully the kid can bounce back and get back to 100%. Jalen Milroe and Drew Lock have also looked good. Milroe, by all accounts, is looking much better on the delivery, and on a couple of the cut-ups I can see from the delivery, it looks pretty good. It looks definitely improved. It's going to be hard to tell until we really can get him in pads, until we can get him to games, and then see really what's setting in, because the games will really tell the tale on this at times, because you will revert back to that muscle memory of, sometimes bad habits if they're ingrained, versus you've uningrained them with the work ethic by flushing them out, getting them washed out. So we'll see that, but it's good to hear, much like Arroyo, it's good to hear that he's coming in there, and all accounts are with most of these rookies that we've heard good returns. Sam Darnold talked about Torrey Horton. Fast, shifty, good route runner in there. Sounds like he feels pretty good about him. I mean, your quarterback was kind of speaking everybody up. You expect him to do that, but still good to hear. Nonetheless, we had a cut-up I played yesterday for you guys. I'm going to play it one more time because it's only about 30, 45 seconds, and it's fun, and it jacks me up a little bit. And that is listening to Julian Love being asked about Nick Emawari, and he was questioned specifically about the comparisons between Nick Emawari and Cam Chancellor. I know some of you may have seen this already, but just want to play this again quickly for those that haven't.
That's tough. Obviously, Cam Chancellor not only was a great player, but he captured the hearts of everyone in Seattle, and that team was a special team. Maybe the height, people kind of can see a similarity, but other than that, I don't think they have much in common. Nick is incredibly athletic. He plays well in space. He's lanky. He's going to play a much different role than what Cam did for the Seahawks, and so I would definitely steer away from those, but this kid's special. I mean, his ability to run, turn, jump, and, and dip and extend and change direction is unlike anybody I don't think I've ever seen at the position, and so I don't know what lane, what bucket he would fit into because he is so different. I've never seen it before.
So high praise from Julian Love, not a guy that I've heard throw around that kind of hyperbole when it comes to players since he's been here in that manner. I think he speaks to as much when you hear him talk, as he seems to be a pretty straightforward, honest guy, that this is just what he's seeing, and that it's true to what we know about Emawari as well, being that this is a guy put together in such a way that safeties are not put together. Can't tell you how many drafts I've gone through in recent years where you've had to watch these safeties running 4.65 with limited explosiveness and not much size, not much length, athleticism average. And here you get a guy that is the polar opposite almost on every physical attribute that you could look for from the position, but not necessarily in the Cam Chancellor way, because as it's been said many times before, and it is very true, Cam Chancellor couldn't play in the same manner today that he once played. The game has been legislated in a much different brand, a much different version of play. It was even starting during his time where he was having to adjust sort of midstream and how he hit guys. He was able to do it. But I think that he even today would have some struggles in being able to play the same way. You need more of the hybridized kind of guy in this modern age, and that is what Emawari is. He is your more new age Cam more than he is a Cam Chancellor comparison. But the fact the Hawks are using him all over the place in Julian Love's interview, that it's not on that section. They are having him in all of the meetings. He's doing all of these different things. We wondered a little bit about prior to the season how his use was going to be. Is he going to be put up and taken into the slot role and taken over for Witherspoon? Witherspoon then kicked more to the outside. Would he be just kind of bopped around a little bit? A little here, a little there, a little there. It does seem like it's going to be a little bit more of the latter. So it does seem like Witherspoon's more kind of locked into still playing into that slot, and that you're just going to see a little bit of moving everywhere. There will be times where Emawari will be in the slot, but just not that it's a full-time role or that it's a purified Hamilton role this year in that way. I think there's going to be a little split between Witherspoon and Emawari and how they play that, but they're not sort of giving him just a small dish and saying like, okay, master, what's on this dish? They're giving him the full thing here. And they're really trusting in his ability to take all that on, because it's hard enough for a rookie to be able to, and it's part of why Julian, I think, was so kind of astonished by it and kind of like, it's a lot, because it's hard enough for a rookie to come in there for one positional group to try to master one thing. Try to come in there for a couple of different things that you're learning at the same time and keep all the details right in a very complex defense. We're going to learn about a lot of how fast Nick can process and how quickly he can come along if he can take all of this on and actually bring some measurable impact in what he brings to play. I do worry a little bit that you overload the kid, and rather than hopefully finding him a role, it seems like usually these players in that first year, you're better suited to try to just give him more of that conditional kind of role where they're going to have snaps. They're going to get on the football field, but you're just not, throwing everything at them in the kitchen sink. And I don't think they're going to here. I think they'll play it smart, but very good to hear that he's been impressing. And boy, Julian Love is hyped through the moon on this kid. Can't undersell that part. The offensive line is still a bit of a work in progress. There's not an account yet of somehow everything's been aligned up and they've got their starters, and this guy's just, he's taken over from day one here, and the guy next to him's locked in. It does still sound like when you hear Mike Macdonald talk that this is going to still be a little bit open-ended as to how this really does end up shaking out all the way down the line.
I think you got to just trust the process. I think if you start putting a timeline on it, you might be forced to make a decision that's probably maybe immature, or maybe you're waiting too long. Maybe it declares itself, before. You just don't know those things. So we got a lot of experience coaching those guys. It's interesting from my perspective to watch it as well, and kind of as we bounce ideas off one another as this thing starts to declare itself. But you definitely have to get in next week. Might have to get into preseason games, see it live and in color. So.
An item I'm just paying close attention to because I'm a little worried about it, and I think it's also going to be a little bit of a canary in the coal mine for us to be paying attention to whether or not the offensive line is truly making progress, if it's coming along, if there's improvement at play, or if we still have to hold on to our butt cheeks. And I'm hoping it is that former, but the quicker that you can get a starting offensive line in place and start to work on getting the cohesion factor imparted, the better, in my opinion. And the longer that you go along, sliding the parts around from here to there and back again, the more that you're just likely to have more of kind of a hot mess a little bit when it comes to an offensive line. That's been one of the great indicators, the commonalities of offensive lines that you've seen here through the last 10 years is a constant revolution of the parts rolling through. And it sort of undermines that part that's such an important part to having a good offensive line, which is that all of these guys can play together. This guy to my right, I know exactly what he's doing. This guy to my left, I know what exactly he's doing. We get a double A gap mug pressure stunt blitz right up front. Everybody knows exactly where they got to be. I know exactly how he's going to react. He knows how I'm going to react. When you're floating everybody through, you lose that. And it makes playing offensive line harder. So hopefully they can slide those in a little bit quicker. But we're already hearing about with Christian Haynes that there's a little bit of smattering of moving him snap-wise into the center position. Here, Bob Condotta says the O-line continues to rotate, though the initial first-team grouping included Oluwatimi at center and Haynes at right guard. But Sundell and Bradford also got significant work with the ones at center and right guard. Haynes also got one series at center, and Sundell one full series with the ones at right guard. Not a bad thing. Versatility, I get all that. I'm not overstating this too much. This is a tracking thing for me on this part. And before pads come on, it doesn't surprise me that you don't have your starters kind of starting to cement themselves. And I think in the McDonald clip there, he intimated a little bit at the fact that into next week, once they start getting in the pads, they'll have, I think, a little bit of a better idea where stuff is going to land when this is all settled up on how this plays out. But the sooner the better that we can get these starters in and roll with it, make a decision, go with your guy, go with the guy for the ups and downs he'll bring. If it's a matter of these guys behind him aren't winning the job over, well, then there's really not a guy that's just suddenly magically going to get better overnight, is there? And so if you're not going to have that, at least then be able to fall back upon the ability to have a guy who's played with those guys over and over and repped out as many times as absolutely possible, especially for the system that's so detail-centric, especially for the system that has such an easy manner to flub up things from an offensive line perspective because of those extra details. That's one of the downsides of adding all that stuff, is it's more mental errors that can come now into play at times rather than just being beat purely physically. So a little bit of a thing I worry about, but not obviously a major issue, just something to kind of pay attention to as we do roll along. We also did have a little bit of a cool soundbite here in regards to playing the run and how the team is running the ball, about the offensive line from Leonard Williams, and talking a little bit about this outside zone. And I thought it was an interesting, just a little bit of a clip from him, especially when he was referencing a specific team that they played last year and how hard it was dealing with that in that team last year. So here's Leo.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember we played the Falcons last year, and they kind of had a similar scheme. And, Bijan Robinson, able to just stretch the ball, cut back, and find holes and stuff like that. It's definitely hard on the defense because you're stretching the ball for so long, and everyone has to have their gap integrity the whole time. So sometimes it's hard to stay in my gap running sideways for like 5 or 6 yards, you know what I mean?
Gap integrity is one of the toughest things to maintain on a defensive front in modern football already. The reason being is that the cover 2 shell has removed the box safety down from in that front 7 grouping. And so what that does then do is you take the safety away, everybody's now got to really be able to control their gap. You got one guy loses his gap, everybody else does their job, the play's blown. It's as simple as that. And so everybody's got to maintain it, and it's hard to do if you're launching yourself off the line, going forward, straight motion to make that happen. It's then a whole nother problem when you've got to go laterally to then continue to maintain that gap integrity that Leonard Williams was talking about. It makes it doubly hard. The other nice part about this outside zone system and what it does to defensive linemen is it sort of defangs them a little bit. It doesn't allow them as much to just be up there attacking, getting upfield if you were more stagnant offensively to how you attacked. If you were living more in the A and the B gap, now I can go a little bit more whole hog, not worry about as much, having to get to a different play to an way out over here. I can just get upfield and kind of attack. Well, now here I'm forced to have to be patient, like Leonard Williams was saying, and carry my offensive lineman 4 and 5 steps to my lateral side and maintain that gap integrity. And my guy on my left and right need to be doing the very same thing in the same manner. We can't get carried too far, any of us, because the back's looking for that. The back's coming out on that outside run, and he's looking for who's going to lose their integrity. And it's very hard to keep it because it's not as much there, again, about being blown off the ball as the lineman's taking you on a ride. It's as much as just your steps are out of alignment with the other defensive lineman's steps next to you as you're going wide, and it creates this little crease, and bingo, bang, you get a quick, explosive running back, and he's through the hole, gone. Works just kind of as simply as that in the system, but it's so nice in that it does take away a little bit of the aggression from the defensive line and how they can attack, makes their job harder, makes it a long day at the office, makes them have to keep thinking on plays, not just read, react, but having to, where am I at? Where's the guy around me? Am I maintaining my gap? Do I have my pathway back to either gap I got to go, depending on how the running back may read it and shoot it? A lot of stuff you have to think about that's just a little bit extra, but one of the nice things within this system. Charles Cross had a press conference that I thought was very interesting. It's really good to hear him. Boy, he's getting older. You can see he's growing out of the baby face. He's added on that extra weight. Looking good. And he also was kind of saying the right things in addition to that. Been very well coached on it. You love to hear when these players are this way. This is what you want to have in your building rather than having people that are popping off about a lack of respect. And he has gone through 3 years now, so he is eligible for a contract extension. And so only right of the Seattle reporters here to ask Cross about the contract extension, though they did try to then press him a little bit extra with some follow-up questions to try to get him to take the bait a little bit. Listen and see if you don't hear a little bit of the same thing.
No, not yet, but I'm just focused on this upcoming season and working for the upcoming season.
That gets done then this year if it
I'm just focused on being the best player I can be for a team and the team's success.
Would you like to know if you could be staying here?
I would love, I want to be in Seattle as long as I want to be in Seattle for my career. That's something I always thought of and wanted for myself. Hopefully we can get something done and it'll go that way.
So I understand why they would want to ask those questions, and good on him asking it. It's also great on his responses. Very well done there. If you were his agent, you'd be clapping and saying, yes, perfect, because that's just what you want. It doesn't help the client out when he starts popping off. It doesn't speed along negotiations. It's only a problem, and it can create clubhouse tumultuousness, which you do not want at all. This kid's going to get his contract extension done, I believe. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been done already a little bit on this, but I also understand if the team does potentially want to wait a little bit of time on this. You do have, with a first-round pick, a little bit more club control to hold things out a little bit if that's what you really want to do, if you're not quite certain. And when it comes down to a contract extension that was just handed out today, a monster contract extension to Rashawn Slater. Yes, much like the contract extensions that we were looking at last week with Sauce Gardner and George Karlaftis and how they would affect Woolen and how they would affect potentially the Boye Mafe extension coming down deck either this year or after this season. Same thing is going to be true here with Slater, but a little bit different as well. So Slater signs this big, huge extension, which does continue to push up the tackle market, but it's also a little bit different because Slater signed this deal after his 4th season in the NFL. Charles Cross has gone through his 3rd season in the NFL. And so this is a very interesting situation for John Schneider in his perspective of things. You can get the cheap year of Cross right now as it stands, push off that year of extending him, and then you're going to have to pay the piper. You're going to have to pay at least what the contract probably was given to Slater, if not another 5% on top of it. Or do you want to do like a 15-20% discount right now and signing him on that extension and getting it done here and now? I don't have a good answer on this. I don't have one way I'd lean to it as far as I goes. This is a tough decision to always make in this circumstance from a general manager's standpoint. But I think that there is definitely an argument to be made and said that you would save a significant amount of money by getting the contract extension done now because of the leverage you do possess with the 2 remaining years on his rookie deal. You've already activated his 5th-year option. And the fact that you could theoretically franchise him. I think fans sometimes overspeak and talk too much about the franchise tag and that it's not as much of a viable option for general managers out there because it's one thing to apply the tag. It's another thing to actually have a player that's going to play on that tag, who's going to be happy, who's going to play at his best. It gets a little sticky when you start throwing that tag around, especially for a player who has yet to get their contract extension. So you could wait a year, but that's the interesting decision that's kind of looming over the top of Cross, but good to hear that it's not something that he's worried about or stressing over. He's trusting the process. He's just going to go out there and ball and knows that if he go out there and ball, he's going to get paid. And I think it is going to happen a little bit sooner than later. McDonald was asked a little bit about D'Anthony Bell. He's been another surprising guy who has played really well. This is a kid that was a safety, came out of the draft, small school, back end kind of kid, coming out of the draft sort of guy. Has played a couple of years out there in Cleveland, not played very much over that time period, but McDonald was really impressed by his play. He's had an interception in camp. It sounds like he's been kind of all over the place, and just an interesting player that's just kind of emerged up out of a little bit of nowhere here.
The stuff that D-Bell does really, really well, I think is going to show up next week, when pads are on and when you're going to feel him in special teams, things like that. Doing a great job grasping the scheme. Fun guy to be around. He's on point. Just operates like we want to operate around the building. He's loose. He's focused. He's on point. Great relationship with the guys. And I think the rest of the guys are enjoying having him in the room.
We'll see what we got with him. I think McDonald talked a little bit about you're really going to see him come alive when the pads come on because this kid was basically, his background, though I didn't scout him, was looked at by the Italian evaluators as a guy that was kind of more of your, box. He's got the NFL physicality, athleticism, more of a box guy, coming down, hit you, tackle you. Instincts are a little bit dodgy. They can kind of come and go. Maybe you can get after him a little bit in coverage. So kind of notable that you do see him here in the first few days of camp out there able to make plays in coverage when that was a little bit of the background with him of, look, he does have the speed to do it. He's got the athleticism to do it. Just you do wonder with the instincts there. Maybe those things are starting to come forward for him as a player. Does have pretty good size that he does bring for the position. During the next 11-on-11 period, D'Anthony Bell, the third safety, and another of McDonald's defensive twist, baited Darnold into throwing to Jackson Smith-Njigba. The wide receiver was running a crossing route backside from left to right, away from the quarterback's half rollout to the left. Bell from the other side of the field, cut right to the middle in front of Smith-Njigba, interception. Darnold's first one of the 2-day camp. So got himself a pick, out there making some plays, might even come more alive once the pads come on him. Come on. I said that weird. Once the pads come on, and then at that point, you'll see him maybe out there laying some sticks and hits and whatnot on that side of it. But just a guy to track for a safety position that's really, really pretty deep. Hard way for him to necessarily make this roster, but there is a 4 safety position there that could be theoretically a little bit up for grabs there. So kind of cool to hear that he's out there getting it done as well. Jaron Reed had a really cool interview there talking about Hall throwing him in the path as he's pass rushing. He had a couple of other really cool sound bites on the interview. I definitely recommend going and checking that one out. But this was one of my favorite cut-ups of him, as Byron Murphy is a guy that all of us are looking at and watching and wondering on what he can bring into year 2. Can you keep him out of the nose tackle position year 2? Already Hankins is injured. It's got us out here tapping our toes. Going, this doesn't mean he's going to nose tackle, right? You got a backup plan. Peely's the nose tackle on the roster, or the back end guy, but yeah, give me him before Murphy. We want him to rush the passer. Murphy wants to rush the passer. Murphy's girlfriend wants him to rush the passer. So let's let him rush the passer. And it does sound like he's going to go a little crazy with that this year. But listen to how Jaron Reed talks about Byron Murphy's upcoming year and what he sees for him. Ready to get jacked?
I would say the biggest thing I've seen.
That wasn't it. That's not going to get you jacked. That wasn't the right one. Actually, yeah. Here we go.
In my mind, I can see him being defensive player of the year. In my mind, he's a great guy, man. He works hard. He listens. He's strong as shit. He's fast, and he's strong as shit. And I don't think nobody's going to be able to block him for real.
So he foresees something big time here in Murphy in year 2, potentially defensive player of the year type. Again, Jaron Reed, not a guy like Julian Love that I would say is a guy that is, in his time here in Seattle, that I've known him to be a guy speaking in a lot of hyperbole about the players around him. Pretty even-keeled with it. Will tell you pretty much how it is. He's not going to, mince his words with it. So when he's speaking to that about Byron Murphy in that way, and this guy took Murphy really under his wing from day one by Murphy's own words, and then he's saying, I see this in this kid. I see this potential here in this kid. I remember Hankins talking about it last year, saying he sees it as well. When the peers around you are saying that we see you as being potentially this good, we can see it there. I think it does illustrate to us as the common fan that this thing is going to come, that you are going to feel it on a football field. And by all accounts there with Murphy being strong as S or not, he is going to get this job done, and the combination of strength, explosiveness, quickness for his size and that low center of gravity that he's got, it's going to make him, I think, a problem here in year 2, especially when he's operating out of that 3-tech role. Leonard Williams felt much of the same when contemplating about Murphy's year 2 experience.
I would say the biggest thing I've seen is just his mindset shift. Last year he came in not quite sure what to expect. He's just trying to learn from what he's seeing and stuff like that. Whereas this year, I heard him say from himself that he just wasn't satisfied with his rookie season. We think he did a great job. We know that there's growing in this league, but the fact that he's not satisfied with it shows that he's motivated to work hard.
What do you think's next for him?
It's a good question. I think just following the process, it's just just keep working hard, keep his head down. I think he's going to be a great player in this league, but it's not going to happen overnight. And I think as long as he just keeps his mindset focused on getting better and never being satisfied, whether he had a good season or a bad season, continue to be great.
So both of the peers really look at Murphy as a guy that's got a lot of potential, and he'll get there. Leonard talking a little bit about the timeline and how this can take a little bit of time for guys, and you just got to be patient with that process. Hell, I think you can make the argument with Leonard Williams. He had probably the best year of his career last year, 31 years old. So it does take time. It's a little bit the offshoot of what I was talking about with Hall or Mafe. These guys you look at and you see them with the length that they have and with the power and with the physical gifts that they've been given. You say, well, why aren't you just more dominant? Why don't you got more that you're bringing? And I think it does come down to there are those freak shows that walk onto the scene that are dominant, instantaneous. Your Micah Parsons, your Myles Garrett types. They do exist. But I think by and large, the general nature of the beast for these edge rushers or interior guys that are trying to learn how to do it is that it does take you time to get there. It's not an overnight experience for the most part, unless you're a freakazoid. And there's just few of those guys walking the earth. And so give him the time. The development's going to happen. You're going to get the impact of this kid. Just really the key comes down to, can you please, by God, keep him out of the nose tackle position? Let's pull those double teams away. And that brings me to Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins is a guy that we are talking a little bit about the last couple of days because this guy just has oddly suddenly gone onto the market. The Raiders signed him to this monster contract extension, not just about almost a year ago, out of Miami, a guy who would earn that extension. a nose tackle, really good at what he did. But he got there to the Raiders, had a foot injury last year, super serious, stuff happening in the background. I mean, you're hearing rumors from every different direction on this. I'm just waiting for somebody to tell me that he was the one that took out Kennedy at this point. I mean, it's almost gotten to that point of it. I mean, just take this latest note, this latest twist of the story. Christian Wilkins reportedly had an incident with a teammate that led to his release by the Raiders, league sources tell Josina Anderson. Sources within the team are being very careful and won't leak any details. One says, it was weird, like very weird. If true, it adds to the narrative that Wilkins became an issue in the locker room and that the timing of his release extends beyond his dispute with the team regarding his foot rehab. So, I as my buddy Brian there below says, I don't know if Josine is a reliable source. I don't know either. She's had some hit or miss stuff in her past with it. I don't know what to think of anything with this story as far as one way or the other with it. I do think the Seahawks should be kicking the tires. Just give them a little kick, get in the interior, smell the interior, see if it's got a little bit of that new car smell still lingering over. Still a young player. And he is a pure nose tackle. And the Seattle Seahawks have lightness, weakness at the nose tackle position, not to mention that draw the coaching staff may have where they're like, I don't like where we're getting out of nose tackle. I mean, we got Leonard over there. We got Riley Mills. He's a 3 tech. We can put Jaron back over there. But Byron could be still a nose for us. We could still have him do that. And so there's the draw to do that is going to be there if you don't have a guy. And I wonder about that. So we'll see if Wilkins is a possibility. Maybe Schneider's got some inside info on this one, the true story, the true tea. When it comes to Carroll letting him know, going, yeah, you don't want, no, John, no, you don't want, no. Some of this also, though, could be, too, Carroll coming in and doing a little bit of the TJ Hushmanzada thing, where Carroll came in on that Seahawks roster that he inherited. TJ was the, rich free agent signing the Seattle Seahawks had made, the big-time guy. Carroll wanted him to do something in a meeting that TJ didn't want to do. Carroll released him the next day. A bit of a messaging more to the rest of the players, more than it was that TJ just had nothing left to offer as a player. It was more of, no, this is how we're going to do business here. This is the new standard we are setting here. It's not the old Raiders way and the old Seahawk way. So maybe a little bit of Coach Carroll going back down the same road that he's been down before in this vein of things. But what did Christian do? Who did you touch, Christian? I need to go to the Raider player and bring a doll and be like, where did Christian touch you? Where'd he done it? Where'd he done it? Where he done it? I don't know. Weird story coming up out of the Raiders. But would you expect anything else from the Raiders, quite frankly? I mean, let's be real with it on that side of it. I certainly would not. A little other final note here as we'll get over to you guys here in the chat and chop it up a little bit with you guys today, see where you guys' mind is at. But just another kind of interesting thing and something that stood out to me a little bit as I've been monitoring a little bit of what we're going to be dealing with on our schedule and opponents we're going to be dealing with on our schedule is I've noted that I think that this schedule's about as weak and about as easy a schedule as we've had in probably about, let's just be conservative and say 7 years, but I think you could easily say maybe 10 years. And this has really opened up the door this year for the Seattle Seahawks to be even much better than where Vegas has it, even much better where some of the national perspective has us. It absolutely does. And there has been some further ongoing things since understanding that have only more reinforced that for me with a variety of the teams that we're going to play. One of those teams that I think that we're going to have a real good, I think that we match up really well with them, and McDonald's defense matches up really well with them, and that is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. I think in a lot of ways, Mike McDonald really got after Drew Petzing there with Cardinals last year. He really understood how to deal with Kyler Murray and really kind of took the wheels off Kyler and just didn't give him anywhere to go in either of those two matchups. I mean, Kyler just did not look like he wanted any part of that defense. And so I do think you already kind of got them a little bit there. But the thing to monitor as well with the Arizona Cardinals is that they have a situation like the Spinal Tap Drummers starting to go on with their cornerback room right now. So in the offseason, they lost one of their cornerbacks, and whether you want to say starter, not starter, definitely started games for them. and was a part of the rotation and a fairly key part of that rotation in the number of snaps that he got. But you had Sterling Thomas go down in the offseason, out for the year, IR, Dunsky. Now you've got, I think it was today, 2 more cornerbacks go down for them. Sean Murphy-Bunting goes down with a torn ACL. He's out for the year. And then 7th round pick Jaden Davis has also been put on IR. They're not letting us know exactly yet what that injury is, but that's 3 cornerbacks. This is notable because this leaves them a little bit lean, as they've already had to, they like literally signed a Rough Rider cornerback from like the USFL. It's already gotten there for your Cardinal team as far as the cornerback situation goes. And the 2 other corners that they're going to be heavily relying on this team, Will Johnson, Max Melton, are both 2 guys with a pretty rich injury history to already add to what you're bringing to play here. Max didn't even hardly play last year due to injury. And then in the case of Will Johnson, the whole reason that he drifted and fell into the deep depths of the second round, despite having the really good talent, is the teams thought he had a degenerative knee that was only going to allow him to play so good for so long potentially, or maybe not even play at the height of the heights anymore by where the knee was at. I mean, a guy like that, as talented as he was, he had blue chip film in 2023, is not going to drop that far unless there's something pretty major going on with that knee. And now he goes down or Max goes down. This Arizona Cardinal team doesn't have any other answers there behind it. This is not a unit that's just hugely stacked up. They got a good slot corner there, but let's remember with that's their slot there. Garrett Williams, he's the slot. He's not outside. So you're talking about, these are their 2 outside guys they're going to heavily lean upon. They haven't given him much already up until this point, and God forbid one of those guys goes down, and it's going to get very dark for the Cardinals cornerback situation, really quick. They better hope that defensive front can get the job done, which isn't further aided by the fact that already Walter Nolan has got a very serious calf injury going on that's looking like it's going to cost him games moving into the season. So just something to always kind of monitor a little bit with some of these situations out there and how it's breaking down. But Sterling Thomas goes down. I guess Sterling Thomas, the one that went down today. It was Sean Murphy-Bunting that went down in the offseason. So I got that a little bit flipped up. But they're losing cornerbacks. Whenever they're losing them, and they're losing them for the season. And I'm never wishing injury on anybody, but it is what it is. It makes the pathway for the Seahawks through the Cardinals a little bit easier. I thank you guys for watching today. If you can do me a favor, please do hit the like button. I'm sorry about the misunderstanding on the timeline of the stream. Always running through a lot of work, always running really fast. So when I create these streams, I'm trying to do it right and click it right, but I don't, double check through that I got a 5. I just think I get it right. And so I must have messed that up earlier. That's my bad. Appreciate you guys bearing with me on that. I don't know why the stream got scheduled. I didn't mean to set it that way. I'm just always running through fast. So sometimes when you're doing things fast, you're not doing them exact, I guess. And I would say it was probably that. 360 bets. I think Sundell sneaks into the starting O-line, and that has me very excited. I could see it. I definitely could see it. He's being moved over there potentially as a guy that they might like a guard, and maybe has probably better mobility even than what you get from any of the guys that you have there at the guard position that are in on that mix. But center is also another spot that's very much a possibility still for him there too, because of the fact that he is so much more athletic than Oluwatimi is. And so going to be interesting to see if Sundell can kind of carve him out a spot somewhere on that line. A guy that's really made himself in a lot of ways here. CD Wood says, so my hot take this season is that the entire NFC West makes the playoffs. Play the 2 worst divisions in football this year, NFC South and AFC South. It's possible. Definitely possible, like you said, because of the easier schedule. It does give you a little bit more of an inroads to make that happen. Erickson says, tell B that's spot on. Thank you, Erickson. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, Dogzilla, we may not have the studs there on the line. I agree with you. It remains to be seen. Hoping those tackles can kind of become that. Catalyst, is the AFC North better than the AFC West? Good question. It kind of depends on what really Carroll can do first year with the Raiders. You know, can you really get them up to that place? You know, and I would tend to think the AFC North's still a little bit stronger. I think it's more of the AFC West thing. You look at where they're going to be at in a couple of years from now, that they're the ones that'll be on the rise to you know, overtaking that a little bit. But I think you're still looking at the essentially fourth place team in the division being better than, like, if the Browns are fourth place, the Browns will be a better team still than the Raiders will next year. But it's close. Do I trust the right tackle? Well, hard to know, not necessarily, Henry. I mean, but part of it too is I don't know what the medical situation really is with Lucas's knee. I mean, they've hid that information like the lockbox code to Fort Knox. I mean, they do not want to let us know what they did on the knee, what the surgery was, what he has still ongoing. Maybe there's a good reason for that, but it also means that there's no really way entirely to know if he's really fully back, if he's all good. He says he seems to be pretty good. I'll take him at his word on that. But as he's been a guy pretty forthright about his situation. So if he can be healthy, I do, Henry. If Lucas is out there rocking 15 games this year, I'm going to feel great about it. I think that there's a real tangible difference behind how this offensive line plays when he's out there versus anybody else that we've thrown out there over the past couple of years. Doc Zilla says, I've been waiting in this dive bar for hours, waiting for Brandon to arrive. Thank you for hanging out on me, or hanging in there for me. Appreciate you. CD says, the biggest thing that I think could sink NFC West all making the playoffs is either the Falcons or Panthers taking a big step, in my opinion. Possible. I do think that Cardinals have a situation where injuries are already starting to kind of come up on them a bit here pretty early on in camp, which is not usually a good sign. But back to your point on the playing the weak divisions, and we all get to do that collectively in this division. I mean, that's why everybody's got the easier schedule. And even aside from maybe the Rams, and even the Rams have like the 20th hardest schedule. So their first place schedule is not like your typical first place schedule. And when the schedule is set up to be that easy, kind of anything's possible with the whole division having that potential of getting into the playoffs. I could see it. Catalyst is Bell challenging Jarek Reed for the 4 safety spot. I would think a little bit. Don't know where. I have heard no reports on Jarek Reed, Catalyst. Jarek is more of a free safety pure, and this guy's more of a strong safety by when I was doing some research on him and how he's been played and utilized in the past. So with having already Nick Emawari, it's a lock to make the roster as a strong safety as it is, kind of, whereas I don't know if Nick would do as much of the single high stuff. Maybe. It's got the speed to do it, that's for sure, but maybe it's because I just have the old school thought of him with his size and thinking, he's going to be more of a strong, and how you'll use him. But with that said, you could maybe have, because you have guys that you feel like can play the free. Julian Love could play the free if you need him to do so. Kobe Ryan could play the free. If Julian Love went down, you could slide Nick Emawari into the strong. Then you could have this guy in there. So I would say that they're definitely battling it out. And just because Jarek's more free and D'Anthony Bell's more strong safety, I don't think that means that he doesn't have still possibly make the roster if he's just going to play this good. I mean, that's the thing, is if you're just lighting up that well on practice field, you carry it over into preseason games. You don't give the coaching staff much of a choice in the matter. You got to make the roster. You force your way into the roster, as they say. Morgan says, let's see Cross prove himself a bit more with a better line system. I think that's fair enough. But then the understanding is too, though, that the price definitely does go up fairly substantially. Not incredibly, not like it's going to break the bank, but it will go up if you wait a year on this one versus now, for sure. But that's a fair direction to go, I'd say. Is it just me or the bartender? But now that Brandon's parked his car here, 2 folks have been rolling in. Quinn says, now that I'm just imagining Reed and Murphy next to each other on the line, and Reed just endlessly whispering, he's strong as shit, over and over again, and freaking out the line. That'd be pretty intimidating. And then just Dim Murphy just over there grunting, especially if it was like a cold day and he's like grunting through his nose. So it's like a bowl when they got the, you can see the little air, when the cold air blowing out through their nose. Like, that'd be awesome. I think that'd work. I definitely think that'd work. He's about to whoop your ass. He's strong as Morgan says we should have drafted Verse. Byron's fine, but you watch one college game of Verse, felt obvious. Definitely maybe one we end up kicking ourselves on. I think if you end up, could end up in a situation too here, Morgan, where we come to find with both of them that both end up having a kind of a similar impact in what they do from two different places. And we'll see on that. That's the part that remains to be seen. I think it's hard on the assessment point yet on Byron Murphy, just because you did play him so heartily out of position in his first year. And you didn't give him the opportunities to go out there and wreak the kind of havoc that Jared Verse could wreak off the edge. But we may end up coming that place. It's undeniable that Jared Verse is on a pathway towards Defensive Player of the Year, and where he's heading and his ability and what he can get the job done. Hell, practically made that one guy out there in Miami, Teron Armstead, retire in itself. That's pretty impressive. CD Woods, isn't Wilkins another 3-tech? 2,500 B gap snaps in his career, 3,000 A gap snaps. The film that I've watched on him, CD Woods, I've seen him lined as mainly a nose tackle, and that's his past history. That's how Miami used him. Definitely has some 3-tech ability. But at least the tape I remember watching with Miami, they used a lot of him in that spot. He's good weight. You know, he's a guy that goes 325, 330 on a field. So he's got the size to hang on in there. It's a little bit like Murphy, where you can use him a bit of both ways there, CD. But if you just asked him to be nose tackle, I think that he could do that. And if you got him on a cheap deal, which I think it would be a pretty cheap deal at this point, he can't expect to be paid much in the open market between how it ended there with Vegas. And also there might be some offset language that could change this as well, where it becomes very, very cheap to bring him in, where it just could make some sense at that point. But yeah, he has definitely done some 3-tech stuff too, in addition to that. Tom Brady ain't playing around anymore. No, he is not. CD says, I saw a Tyler Sports game by game breakdown our record, 4-2 in the division, then had us lose every competitive non-division game on our schedule, plus a loss against the Panthers. We still went 10-7. Interesting. You got to figure you'll get a couple of those non-division competitive games out, right? I still can't see us losing the Panthers. I know people were buying in big time to the Panthers, and I don't think they're going to be bad by any measure, but I'm still not bought in on the Panthers. I'm still kind of, I'm 11-6, CD. That's where I'm at. 11-6, man. I feel I'm going to stand on that prediction. I'm standing on business. 11-6. Washington Fist Quest celebrating 45 months. 45 months as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowl member. You can become a member today. Some really great benefits to you as a member. We're going to be doing a call-in show here soon. We're going to have Thursday night football game watch-alongs. We've got a variety of stuff coming up here for members. PFF scores Monday morning. So you do want to be a member or a patron if you want. Either way, you get the membership benefits on either side of it. Thank you for that, Washington Quest. He says, with a fullback and 3 quarterbacks, what positions do we go light? I think that very well this could end up making the one upside, let's call it the silver lining to the Kenny McIntosh injury, is that before you were probably likely looking at the specter of carrying 4 pure tailbacks on the roster plus Oots. I'm going to do that every time I say Oots now. Now he goes down. I think what they do instead is now they're going to carry the 3 running backs on the active roster. Holani goes to practice squad fluctuation kind of guy. And then Oots becomes just the pure 4th fullback on the roster now. So you've lightened it up via that method. I think that they're going to carry 1 less inside linebacker than they carried last year. And I'm still not convinced Saubert's going to make the roster, that they're not potentially going to still just go to two two tight ends, but this is where too Arroyo could end up counting like a wide receiver, and then Saubert turns into the second tight end. But the McIntosh situation made this pickle a little bit less sticky, FishQuest. A little bit more kind of a pathway you can see how they'll do it, because Holani's not likely to get plucked off the practice squad. Thank you for reminding that, Brian. If you guys can for me today, just smack on that like button. Yeah, if you get a chance, get a shot, maybe hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Very kind of you. Murphy bunting is major. Grandizer, have a good night, Brandon. You shut it down? We'll go for a little bit tonight. Go for a little bit here. Dogzilla, is there no competition for the rookie at left guard? Well, Bryce Cable do. I guess the question would be, is there quality competition for Zabel at the left guard position? And my answer to that would be most likely not, Dogzilla. I don't. Let's go through this kind of bit by bit. There's no way Anthony Bradford can play left guard. He's a right guard. He's going to take up space. He's going to be big. He's going to slobber knock guys. He's going to work off double teams. He's going to climb to second level with the athleticism. That's him. You need to put him with one tex in front of him that he's pass blocking, not three tex. Christian Haynes, he's got a little more of a potential to maybe slide over to left guard because he has been a better pass protector. But you do wonder if there's just quite enough kind of athleticism and mobility there to get the job done at left guard versus right guard. But he's got a chance, but he's not I don't think he's a strong push to Zabel, Dogzilla. Sundal, they're trying at right guard. They're not trying him at left guard. Sato Lumea is a guy that did really good with the run blocking last year and can move in space well on the gap stuff and pulling back across the formation, but then he's not as much of a movement-based guy when it comes to pass blocking, and that he was god-awful as a pass blocker last year at the right guard position. So he's only going to get worse if you moved him over to left guard. So don't know what we got in Cable do right now, Dogzilla, a left tackle convert like Zabel, but left guard is a little bit of a lean position as far as the depth behind Zabel. It's sort of Zabel's job and Zabel's job. Thank you, though, Dogzilla. Kendrick Lamar, has there ever been a year where all teams from one division made the playoffs? I don't think it's ever happened. I don't think it's ever happened. No. Or at least I can't think of it. I know he's gotten 3 teams for sure. That's occurred, but I can't think of a time where there was 4. Washington Fish Quest, thank you for another $5 donation. Washington Fish Quest says, thanks for your coverage of the offseason. Loving the vibe right now. B&B show was dynamite as always. Go Hawks. Well, it's always good to have the B&B show going. It's never, the season is not kicked off fully yet really until the B&B show's gone. You know, then I know we're now, all right, it's about to count. It's about to be live here. We're about to go. But thank you, Wash Fish Quest. I think we've got a good, it took me a couple of years to kind of find how you want to roll the off season. And I think I'm getting a little bit by bit better at it and kind of what I want to concentrate content wise and where we want to drive things towards and all that. So I think it's getting a little more refined on that and where to kind of keep the attention. But I had a good time, covered things through and got things set up for the daily show here during the week, which I'm looking forward to this season. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to be amped up this year, folks. We're going to have a good year. We're going to have a great year. That we just crossed 19,400 subscribers. So we're rolling along, man. But thank you, Fish Quest. I appreciate you, man. Hope all's going well out there in the fisheries. Snail says he wants the Falcons to win the Super Bowl because the Rams have their pick. Boy, is that true. It's almost enough for them to win it just for that, huh? Why you mad, bro? Are we going to get any more NFC West roundtable live streams anytime soon? Yes, at the beginning of August here. I think maybe next. If it's not, I think is it next week. It's not maybe next week, but the week after. We'll be doing it. We were going to get some shows planned up. Why you mad, bro? We were going to do some shows prior to the official startup back over on the roundtable show and just do some shows from us, from our individual channels. But then we had an issue with Jesse's got some pretty major issues going on in the background. And so he had to kind of take care of that. And we don't want to really be going live unless we got all 4 guys, going. I mean, if somebody misses a stream here or there, it's okay. But if he was going to miss a couple, we wanted to just wait at that point. So early August, we'll be back, kicking back off the NFC West roundtable. And the goal is eventually try to get that thing going to twice a week as we kind of can. We're trying to push on that as we can. Old Greasy, who do you think the Seahawks bring in as far as acquisitions? I think Jadeveon Clowney ends up as Seattle Seahawk at this point. I think the ominous nature of this Uchenna Nwosu injury and that it still has prevailed in that you could really very smartly deduce that, look, we're not going to get a full season of Uchenna. Probably not going to get a full season of Jadeveon Clowney. Let's go sign Jadeveon for whatever little 1 year chunk of change we got to sign him for. We get the combination of those two guys to serve as the fourth edge role, which is an important role, I would say, in this defense, that there's plenty of snaps there still for that fourth edge. It's going to come into play, especially considering that you do have a little bit of an injury history there too with DeMarcus Lawrence. So something to probably consider. He would be the one guy to me that stands out that just makes kind of too much sense that you end up bringing in some way or another. Aside from that, I don't think the team's running at Trey Hendrickson at this point. And there's nobody on the market I can really think of that stands out as somebody that makes a lot of sense that they're going to go after at this point. It's pretty much quiet on that front of things as far as there not being a lot of disgruntled guys out there. Maybe we'll hear about a little bit more of something as we get closer to the cut deadline and guys start getting kind of trimmed away and something goes on here or there. But it's been so quiet, Ola Greasy. I wish I had more names for you as far as possibilities go, but I don't see a lot of teams out there in the league right now that are sitting on a lot of guys that are, they got a young guy ready to rise up and overtake a vet who's still productive, but maybe a little bit expensive. Those kind of conditions that can create somebody who could become available. There's just nothing out there really right now, unfortunately. Jonas Doyle, we need a dance to go viral for the season, like the Dirty Bird for the Falcons. Let's see if we can maybe come up with something. We just got to find a way to incorporate the flapping in a creative way. Maybe a little tail feather. A little tail feather bounce. Do the tail feather bounce. Yeah, Byron Murphy's not a nose tackle, Paul, that's for sure. Yeah. He can do it, Quinn. To your point, yeah, like you say, Byron can do the nose tackle. It's a waste of a guy's potential because he can give you much more measurable impact from the three tech position. You're just having him there because you just don't like what else you have on the roster from the nose tackle spot. Hash slinging sister, it sounds like none of the young guys are truly stamping their name on the right guard position. If this were to continue, would you be opposed to signing Brandon Scherf? I don't know if I could quite, Scherf's definitely the vet who's seen it all, been there, done it all, but he's also 34 years old. Does Brandon Scherf want to be aligned into an outside zone game, which is going to feature his mobility at his age? I don't know about that. I don't know if he'd be quite a good fit at this point. I think he's also played the majority of his career as a left guard. So now you're going to also then play him out of position into a scheme that doesn't probably best utilize his, lost a step or two positioning of where he's at in his career. You look at the performance hasn't been necessarily grade A here from Scherf lately either. I probably wouldn't, unless it's just that it's so bad at right guard, where it's not just a matter of like nobody's taking the job and running with it, but everybody looks bad. If it reaches that point, you got to do something, but you would hope that at least they could be workable in there whoever you end up putting in there. Yeah, Brian, too early to have a true front runner. What's up, Milwaukee Bucks are here too. Good to see you, man. You guys got to get your Green Bay team will be good this year, man. Everybody talking about the Lions, the Bears. Vikings might be tough, but they got a rookie quarterback starting, basically. Brian says if there's 3 tight ends and a fullback and one less wide receiver as Arroyo moves in and out. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Why you go one less inside? If you look at last year's roster, you go one less inside, one less receiver, and one less inside linebacker, and you could kind of then get it figured out. The extra additions then with the extra quarterback and then the rocking the fullback essentially. Chase says, I'd give a lot for Micah. I would too. I wouldn't give more than a third for Trey. I probably wouldn't either at this point, Chase, because you got to give him such a substantial contract for a guy very advanced in age, going to a new team. This is where the Bengals, to me, have to sort of pay the price of, if you're going to mess around and play this stupid game, then you can win stupid prizes. And if you didn't want to pay Trey, and you didn't have the money to pay Trey, and you knew you didn't have the money to pay Trey, you move him then at the draft, and you go get a second-round pick back for him. Probably a late second-round pick, but a second-round pick. And you call it a day. But now you've waited, and less teams have less money to give him for the contract he wants, and now what you can get back is less returns, and then you're just driven to a place of like saying, well, F it. We'll just sit here and put our hands in our pockets and wait for something to happen. Bengals are dumb. They just kind of are. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $5 donation. Randall, in vacation down here on the Oregon coast. Ooh, it's nice this time of year down there, man. They got some underrated beaches. Just woke up from a nap. Enough about Randy. Thoughts on camp so far? Need pads on. This ain't two-hand touch. Yeah, I think you need to see the pads on before you really know what's what. Part of the reason I wanted to wait to go to camp until I was going to be there where the pads were on and you could see a little bit more of what was happening. You had your full offseason OTA participation this offseason. You have Sam Darnold throwing with guys in California. You have everybody, kind of what I'm trying to say is doing the extra mile or doing far beyond just the bare minimum to make sure that they're prepared for this to be a great training camp. You have veterans, especially on this defense, talking about the understanding of what it takes to become a special defense, the standard that you need to set, the way you need to practice, how you need to care, how it needs to matter. And I think that while you can't get a lot always here initially in camp about the way guys are at and where they're at play-wise, you can get a lot, I think, as far as where their mentality is, the buy-in factor. Do you have guys that are recognizing the moment and they want to take that and take advantage of that for everything it's worth? And I got a lot of guys in this defense, from Jaron Reed to Leonard Williams to Julian Love, who when they speak, they seem to collectively recognize this. And that stands out to me at the beginning of camp, that they're locked in that way, and that's represented in everybody showing up to OTAs in the offseason. And that's the voluntary OTAs, not the mandatory, the voluntary. And so this team is doing the things that they need to do to turn themselves into a contending team, and that's the most important thing to start this out in camp. Sam Darnold has acclimated himself well. He's doing the right things. He's saying the right things. He's playing good football, it sounds like, overall in practice. Just what we want to see there. Byron Murphy at the 3-tech. Yay. Nick Mwari being used all over the place. Elijah Arroyo, Randall looking big and fast and legit and being used as a wide receiver. Still a little bit of some fluctuating parts as far as you can feel the coaches just not quite yet still settled in on the offensive line, which that's fine. We can wait to pads to get to that spot of things. But everything's been pretty good. You got a couple of injuries with Uchenna and McIntosh, which are a little bit concerning here. But you got a way to work around that. Those are two positions where you had some depth built in. I'm sure this makes a little bit more sense, the Lawrence signing, understanding the team probably understood with Uchenna that the thing was going to be a little touch and go on the injury front with him with that. So all well, Randall, really all nothing but kind of good. I don't have a lot to point to be discouraged by. And, everything's kind of rolling in the right direction at this moment, which is just good to see. Good to see in the house too, brother. Polly 704 says, what do our draft picks over the next few years look like? Do we trade away a bunch of capital? What do our draft picks over the next few years look like? Do we trade away a bunch of capital? I think that I can go off the history of John Schneider with this one, Paulie, and that John, in his history, when you have had a contending team by John's measure, he is willing to then move future capital to top off a team in a given season that he thinks they're good enough to go and make a run. And so that you're getting closer to that stage of things, Paulie, and you are getting closer to that stage of things would lead me to believe that he's going to eventually make that kind of move here at some point or another. Maybe if not this year, within the next year. I don't think he's going to look at trading away a massive draft picks, but just that he is willing to throw that occasional second and third rounder down into the pit and see what comes out. Here's a third rounder for Sheldon Richardson. Here's a third rounder for Jadeveon Clowney. Here's a couple of first rounders for Jamal Adams. Here's a second rounder for Leonard Williams. So he's got a little bit of a past history with being willing to lean into this type of stuff. And that just makes me think all that much more that he will when he eventually gets again back to that stage again where a player becomes available he likes and the cost is right. And he likes to be a little bit of a Trader John. He's a little bit of Kenny Loggins, the gambler out there. And so I think he will, Paulie, at some point, yeah. But I don't think you're going to look at him just saying, hey, we're totally stacked out on the team and we're going to move our picks in mass or do a lot of different things. It'll be one sort of specific, pertinent kind of throwing of picks at a specific spot. And the team's got to be in the right point. But we have all of our picks as we go into the future, if that's what you're asking. Like, we have all of our native picks moving into the future on that. CD says, I just feel like nose tackle is a bigger need than edge. We had a better pressure percentage than the Rams. We need to shore up the nose tackle spot, IMO. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't disagree with you there. Part of going with a guy like Clowney is you have a guy in Clowney or going after an edge right now. You look at there's a little bit better edges available out there on the market on that CD, where when you look at the nose tackles that are out there, there's nobody that's really available. And so that's why I'm 100% agreement with you. It's just that there's nobody out there to really go pluck from. I'll go fully make a run at Christian Wilkins. I mean, it doesn't even make me bat an eye. I mean, even if there were some issues there with the Raiders, I'd just bring him and be like, look, we're trying to build a Super Bowl runner. Do you want to be in on that? Yeah, I want to be on that. Okay. You understand you're going to need to toe the line at every turn and do everything that we need you to do. And the good part about this is that coming from the situation that he did with the Raiders, that you have a guy with a reputation that's a little sullied, that maybe now he understands he has to toe that line the way that he wasn't willing to toe that line with the Raiders. And so I'll jump with 2 feet down on Wilkins and say yes, yes, yes. But there's not. I've looked through the roles, man, and it's lean. It is really, really lean. There's just not a lot of guys out there. It's becoming a very valued position because of the scarcity of it, as much as because of the impactful nature of the position. Jay says, Scherf was always right guard. I'm misremembering stuff today big time. I was a left guard. Let me get it right. We get it right at TheSeahawksNest. We're not always right, but we do get it right here. Okay, yeah, you're right there. Wasn't he a left guard former? Man, why did I think he was left guard? I'm an idiot today. That's my bad. Correction. Thank you for the correction. Scherf is a right guard. But he's played a lot of snaps, I'll tell you what. 3 straight years he's played over 1,000 snaps for the Jaguars, but he is 33 and a half years of age. Former top 5 pick by the Jaguars, by the way. But the overall grades from him have gone from 2020 at 84 to 21, 73 to 22, 59. 23 got back to 67, but then down to 64 last year. Not a great offense. Probably doesn't put offensive linemen in the greatest of positions. I'm open to it. I mean, man, if it's as weak as it is a right guard, I got to change it on it. I'd be open to it. Could have sworn I'd seen my memory's failing me. I'm getting old, folks. Brandon's getting old. Spirit Records says Rams will offer the rights to retire Bobby as a Hawk for Cup back. We're telling you no. They both retire as Seahawks, just to smite the Rams. Quinn says, as much as Micah's shiny, what's the point of having McDonald if we can't get great value out of cheaper set of edges? I think that there's not a hard and fast rule when it comes to this defense and whether or not dynamic edges or impactful edges matter or not. I think that this McDonald has a lot. What I'm kind of trying to say with that, Quinn, is that McDonald's defense has a lot of flexibility between being able to be dominant without dominant edges, but then it can be dominant with dominant edges. It can have a Terrell Suggs out there getting the job done, or it can just kind of get by. And so one thing to consider with this is that in Mike McDonald's iteration of essentially this Buddy Ryan defense, he is not blitz heavy. And so we learned this lesson with the Coach Carroll defenses, and we had to learn this lesson the hard way. And that is that if you are not a defense that wants to blitz a lot, your front four has to get the job done. And are the simulated pressures at times going to create the one-on-one opportunities because you're going to change the protections by the offensive line prior to the snap to give those guys those one-on-one chances to get the job done where there's not an extra chip block or an extra helping hand coming into play? Yes. But you still need the ass kicker to knock that guy in his butt and get to the quarterback. And so if you had more of an iteration of this defense, Quinn, that was more, I would say, blitz heavy on it, then I would be like, well, yeah, you're going to do a lot more with this with the blitz game, so it's not as much then needed to having the dynamic pass rushers to get the job done. But I think that the defense is only made better if you have a substantially impactful edge able to come in there and do that. And I think the thing with this as well is that these type of impactful edges I'm talking about do not grow on trees, a dozen times over across the league. You've got maybe 5 of these kind of cats across the league. So to have an opportunity to grab one, the understanding that you won't be in a position to grab another one like this just going into their prime, it's also a little bit of the market opportunity that's created that's so very unique if Micah were to suddenly become out there. I would say it's very much equivalent to like Reggie White getting out there on the open market there for the Packers when he did. Different players, different times of their careers a little bit. You have to trade for him versus Reggie was just a street free agent. But still, it's that kind of, to me, ground moving kind of impact that you could be getting to your defense. And then the last aspect of this being just that you have the familiarity with the player on top of this. So Quinn, if you do bring him in, you have Dirty here, Dirty having already worked with Micah, knows how he's built, knows how he's wired, knows the kind of player you're going to get. Same thing with Lawrence too, I would say in-house. I know they had a little bit of a tete-a-tete on Twitter, but just beyond that, I think that you've got a little bit more also kind of insider knowledge onto this, where if they made the move, we'd know that there is Dirty in there saying that, yeah, this guy is that guy to go after with this. He's putting his job on the line as much as anybody else to say, go make that trade if they were. And just on the last part of this, Quinn, it also fits in alignment with Schneider in that he is a general manager, unlike a lot of other general managers in this league, who's willing to go make this kind of aggressive move. Whether these have worked out or been always good in our favor or not, he has been willing to go out and do it time and time again, to go out there and roll the dice and make something aggressive happen if he thinks it's the right role to go. So I'm not hardline selling it, Quinn, by any measure. I'm not saying like we've got to do this or bust or whatever, but I do think you certainly are keeping an ear open to the Cowboys situation and understanding that what's driving this as much as anything else from Jerry's standpoint and not wanting to pay Micah is that they're an organization that can kind of be on the low key a little bit cheap in their approach. And they also may be looking at them themselves of like, as I said yesterday on this, Quinn, a little bit with the Cowboys perspective on it of, do we really want to spend $43 million per year for Micah Parsons so that we can get the right to be the third place team in this division? And I think that's a real question the Cowboys are kind of asking themselves right now. And so again, it all becomes stuff that's kind of unrelated to how good Mike is as a player. Then what he brings really to the table in full at that point is more about where their team is at, about how much expensive he is, what then bringing him onto a team and where the rest of their talent is at really will bring that team towards this upcoming season. I think he's just kind of put it all into the blender from Jerry's perspective. And I could see him eventually coming out the other end of it saying, let's call the ball in this year and get this thing turned around to next year and have a chance to maybe go get a quarterback in next year's really rich class of quarterbacks. But again, I don't know for sure how it's going to play out. And Cowboys history is that they tend to pay these guys, Quinn. So it's probably all just an irrelevant discussion anyway, because this will probably end up happening 2 weeks into August. Michael will get paid and Cowboys will pony up every last dollar that they said they weren't going to spend to get the deal done. Chris, how you doing, man? It's been a minute since I tuned in. What's up, Hawksnest? How you doing, brother? It's good to see you, man. Doing good, man. Doing good. Quinn says most people are giving us bad predictions, are basing it on Darnold turning into a pumpkin. Literally, all he needs to do is be okay, and we should get to 10 wins easy. I 100% agree, Quinn. I see it the very same way. I think as well that with quarterback narratives, I think we learned this with Geno Smith pretty concretely. I think we learned it with Russell Wilson as well, because I think Russell kind of went through a little bit of this too, where Russell was for years very underrated in the league. And then when he finally started to almost get his roses was right about the time where he was starting to kind of turn the corner on that in his career, where finally the narrative caught up, but it was also at a point where things had kind of twisted a little bit. And Geno was a little bit similar, where first year or 2 years, nobody could get, in on it. And then now by the end, like he's up in a bunch of top 8 lists out there now this year that you're seeing in the way that this goes. And I think that, Quinn, that just is something that fans and I think pundits, evaluators all have a hard time in quite evaluating quarterback play and understanding what's good quarterback play, bad quarterback play, what's being a guy who's being elevated by his supporting cast versus a guy that's being maybe partially elevated by his supporting cast, but also a guy that's just legitimately good. And I don't quite understand the full narrative into Darnold turning into a pumpkin. When you look at the year that he had with the Minnesota Vikings last year, that's a really good year. That's a really good season. I just don't feel like guys fall into those kind of seasons haphazardly. I don't think that the brilliance of some coach takes them there. I don't think the Minnesota program has been some juggernaut program that elevates any QB you want to throw into there. Yeah, they've had some couple that have come through the last couple of years there, but I just don't think that narrative sticks for me either with it, Quinn. I think Sam's got a skill set that fits very well to this offense, familiarity within this offense. The Seahawks are going to, in a lot of ways, protect him and allow him to be at his best, I think, in the way that they're going to call games, in the pass run rate, in the way that it's going to play out. But I think it's a little bit of a lazy perspective on Sam that he's just going to revert back into the worst version of himself because he's not on Minnesota this year. I don't buy into any of that. Quarterbacks progress, and we just saw this. We literally just saw this with Geno. We literally just saw this same kind of narrative play out with him. So it's kind of surprising so many can't quite see it, where it's like we literally just took a former top high pick from Jets, washed out there, and got him fixed, got him rolling. We don't even have to fix him in the way we had to kind of get Geno fixed. Is Sam got it fixed last year? Should be kind of rolling. I agree. Randall McDaniel, thank you for another $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Randall. Good to hear Milroe at least resembles a quarterback. I think he ends up being good, but not ready to call him Russ 2.0 until I see it in the game. I will as well. I do need to see it in the game. The practice reports on this are going to be encouraging. I hope he lights it up in practice and does great with that. But until we do kind of see more into the game with him, I would going to be just a little bit hesitant to be lopping on the praise left and right on that, on the practice reps with it. And I hope he is, but you're right. At least it's good that he is resembling, a good quarterback. He's also, you can see that he's working on what he recognizes as issues. Some of these quarterbacks that are hyper talented will think their stuff don't stink, and they will tell you that they know they need to work on it, and then they don't really work on it. But with this guy, it seems like he really has taken it on and said, I got to get this worked out. I got to fix this. It's going to take time, and I got to bust my butt on it. And that he's in there early, they've said, and he's doing all the right things. He's doing everything in his control, it sounds like, to resolve the things he needs to resolve to tap into that high potential, because the kid, we can't kind of gets lost and forgotten sometimes when we talk about the issues he's got to correct. The kid's got as much potential as you will find for the quarterback position, bar none. Even the most down evaluator on him would say that. They'd come back and tell you, well, there's no way he's going to reach it. I mean, it's there, but there's no way he's going to reach it. So it's there. It is a matter of just working out all those angles you got to work out to get it right. But let's see what happens when the game comes, and let that kid get a lot of run in the preseason too. Let him get a lot of run in the preseason. I don't want to see a fourth quarter. I want to see just all Milroe all the time preseason, basically. Judah talks. What do you think about Christian Haynes at center? I'm loving this prospect. I think there's a real chance of it. It doesn't seem like he's claimed the job at right guard in the way that I think that the team would have liked to have seen him fully claim the job at right guard by this point. I think that when it comes to the center position, the team's not quite sold on either Oluwatimi or Sundel. and they would like to get a little bit more measurable impact from the position. Haynes sliding into center will give you a much bigger center than you would tend to have in there. A guy with a lot more just good size, width, length to him than you'd have in there typically. Length especially, because a lot of the short arm guys end up becoming centers. So I'm okay with it, Judah. This is the way that it sometimes goes with these offensive line prospects. We saw it with Justin Britt at one time, where he started out as a tackle and then went to right guard and then eventually settled in at center. So it can go this way. The key is just become something good somewhere on the line. If you can't be a good right guard, then just at least be a good center for us. Validate some of that third round pick by, at least providing us, top 15 play from the center position. And I think he potentially could give you that. He's got the physical ability to do it. Just kind of comes down to, can he snap? How comfortable is he doing that? How comfortable is he snapping, getting his hands back up? We'll see. We'll also learn, I think, in the preseason games on this, Judah, how real, honestly, the team wants to walk down this road with him. Meaning that if you don't give him any reps in preseason at center, it's more of you're an emergency center more than it is you're eventually going to be taking a road towards playing the center position. So a very key thing to kind of monitor on this transition too. Micah says, no, you build through the draft. No more foolish trades unless they turn out like Ernest Jones IV. Amen, brother. Amen. Prime says, 12s, what's really good? Pump for the pads going on tomorrow. Pads popping. You boys get some rest tonight. You're going to get in some car crashes tomorrow. Dogzilla, I've been drinking beer in a dive bar since the show started hours ago. Here's what I'm thinking now. Start Milrow. Let's go. Chris says, I want to see who's cut nose tackle wise and grab another rotational piece, if anything. Quality is hard to find. It is. It really is. And I'm open to that too. Hopefully there's somebody out there that kind of dislodges from some team somewhere. It's in looking through the depth charts, because I did this before in the offseason a little bit after free agency, seeing kind of what is out there, and there wasn't a lot out there. And you got a lot of these kind of nose tackles that are just, they're embedded on those teams. And those teams aren't looking to give them up at all. And you also see a commonality amongst a lot of teams in the NFL too, where there's kind of teams in the same kind of pickle we are a little bit, where we don't have very much the nose tackle spot. Go look at the Rams, for instance. I mean, they just got a collection of 3-techs. Even Poon has become more 3-tech at this point in his career. Jay Stearns says, so Dallas won't negotiate with Micah, but they give Jake Ferguson $52 million. Is that what they did? Did they just do that? Wow. Four-year, $52 million deal for Ferguson, the tight end of Dallas. Jamal Adams got that guy paid, huh? Interesting choice by the Cowboys, Chase. Interesting choice that you get this guy settled up before you get to Micah. And Nigeria, $52 million versus $250 million. Quite a difference there, Brandon. Okay? Quite a difference on contract. $250 million. $0.1 million. Okay? Let's put this in perspective now. But I'm just saying, like, Micah's probably sitting there fuming a little bit, right, Chase? Wouldn't you be? Like, really? You're going to pay the tight end before you get to me? You going to get around to it? Superior Records, Darnold's the first white boy quarterback since the great Matthew Hasselbeck. Don't you want to see what he can do, Dogzilla? And we do have Sundell over right guard, Ola Greasy. We'll see once the pads come on with him, because he is a little undersized there, right guard. You know, it's a guy that looks good when you don't have the pads on there, but start putting the pads on, a little bit, maybe the lack of size starts to show up over there at the right guard spot. Just a bit, just a tiny bit maybe. Maybe not. We'll see. Randall, thank you for another $5 donation. Randall McDaniel, appreciate you for that, brother. Jaron Reed made me want to run through a wall. He'll see something in Murphy to say all that. He breaks out, game on. Imagine a 10 to 12 sack year in year 2 from Byron Murphy. Yeah, I was saying too earlier, I don't know if you can remember, Randall, of Jaron Reed ever really hyping anybody up on a team in that way and speaking in those terms. And he isn't just merely saying, yeah, he should crack through and he's got a Pro Bowl kind of year on deck, ready to go. I could see it in him. He was talking Defensive Player of the Year. He's talking even bigger than that in terms of that and how they see this kid. And to me, this isn't just you have drafted some late second round pick who's just blooming and he's starting to surprise everybody. Nobody thought he'd have this kind of potential. This is a situation where John Schneider told you that this was the best defensive player in the entire draft when they took him. He said, this is our number one defensive player in this draft. The team doesn't have that kind of grade on just a guy who's going to be an average to a little bit better than average nose tackle in this league. They're doing that because this is a guy that's going to bring measurable impact to the sport. And I think Jaron Reed's touching on that, Randall. I think he is. Red Furnace, how you doing? Chase Stern says, I'd argue that McDonald could give a great value defense, but I think if you truly give him an elite talent, he could give you generationally great defense. Chase really talks about something that I think he does a better job of encapsulating it better than I did. That's why I say you guys are what makes the channel run here over in the chat, because you often capture it better, succinctly, quicker than I do. So Chase says, I'd argue that McDonald could give a great value defense. So he could do that. But I think if you truly give him an elite talent, he could give you a generationally great defense. So this is at the heart of what I think with the Micah Parsons situation. Let's think about it to like an equivalency of like a Tom Brady. Tom Brady for years was a really good quarterback. And he had some decent receivers that came through the roles there. But the Patriots were renowned for not drafting receivers high, for not really spending a lot of money on wide receivers. Then one year, because the Raiders were dumb, Randy Moss kicks free for a 4th round pick. And the Raiders let him go, goes to the Patriots, and what happens? Sets records with Tom Brady. Tom Brady, you could make the argument, like kind of the equivalent argument you talk about in the value defense or was spoken above on that, Chase, right? Tom Brady can give you a functional offense with average parts out there. He's that good to do that. But you could have a great offense if you supercharge those parts. And I think the same thing with Mike McDonald. I think that rather than the thinking being that you bring a defensive coach in and that he gets by with less, I think you want him to be able to do that. If we get in a pinch, if you get injuries here, I want you to be the kind of coach that's not just going to be sitting there twisting your pockets inside out, shrugging and saying, I don't got anything here to deal with this, but that you've got some answers, that you're smart enough to deal with that. But on the other end of the scale, if I give you dominance, if I give you talent here, that's difference-making talent, you then within your defense can create something that's going to be great. That is something I do believe about this, Chase. And that's, like I said, you more succinctly captured than I did, but something I certainly do believe about this Micah Parsons situation. Jeff Jennings says, to be fair, Mike McDonald has had one draft. You see his control to get his people. True. Just starting to really onboard the guys that fit to exactly what he wants. And I think he's got a lot of flexibility to use guys that don't exactly fit to his scheme. But I think that you're going to get an even better defense the more you can go along to fitting the parts and pieces exact, more than just partially. Red Furnace says, I like the Seahawks, but got to pound the ball more, relying on Geno's arm a little bit too much. Those days are done, Red Furnace, that's for sure. You're not throwing 67% of the time this year. You're going to get those rates down much more closer aligned. You have a system that's built at the forefront to run the ball. And this team has done nothing but reiterate that throughout the offseason over and over again. We are going to run the ball. Every defensive player just about who's been up on the press conference, and one of the first things they've been asked about the offense is like this outside zone run. They're going to run the ball. They're going to look to do that. So it's coming. It's going to be different this year. And that's part of that protection I think you're giving to Darnold, where you're not asking him to do what you did with Geno and that you're going to have to throw the ball 70% of the time. And not just last year with Geno, but the year before too. No more of that. We're gonna reduce down your throws. We're gonna put scripted throws in here with you, Sam, which are going to give you easy openings on the defense, easy completions on the defense. Something that's going to be at the forefront of Kubiak and what he does on a weekly basis is how many easy throws can I give my quarterback? How many times can I get him rolling out from under center, a drag route from a tight end comes across the field, little flip throw, 7 yards, you go get a nice little 8-yard gain with a little bit of run after the catch. How many of those kind of throws can I build within so that I reduce down the amount of times this guy's got to drop back and go through 4 reads and do a miracle worker type of play, as opposed to, I think, on the other side of that, the type of system you had prior with the Geno Smith asked your quarterback to do a lot of that. They had to do a lot of miracle working stuff. Those guys, were like Mother Teresa out there. They practically should have been in India. The amount of miracle work that you need your QBs to pull off with that offensive line, with that lack of a running game, with that poor play calling that has been undertaken the past couple of years. Chase says, I don't think a lot of people are really saying bench Darnold. People are just excited for the future. Yeah, I agree, Chase. And it is going to be the nature of things. The push, we've got to be patient. And all of us big proponents of Sam Darnold, I include myself on this. We got to be patient with the folks that are going to be hyping up Milroe and wanting to see Milroe. And you're going to hear me trying to tap their brakes at every turn that I can. Give the kid the time. Let him have the time. Let him develop. Let him just give him the time to develop. He ain't winning the Super Bowl for us this year if you throw him out in the field. So why not just let him figure it out? Give him that time. But the push is going to be there, and it's going to be constantly there throughout the year, especially if he goes out and lights it up in the preseason. Raymond lives. The cheerleaders are the most important part of the team. Cheerleaders got a 400% raise. Well, it's a hard job, You got to do it. Thank you again, Randall, for that $5 dono. Murphy at 10 to 12 sacks a year from the defensive tackle position is much more impactful from you getting that off of the edge. That's like having an edge that gets like 18, 19 sacks in a year when you have your 3 tech being able to produce that, especially when you can keep in mind that he's splitting that between him and Leonard Williams. So Randall, to your point of that too, is if he got that kind of production in the split, then what's Leonard getting on the other side of it? I mean, do you have a collective 3 tech position that's pulling out almost 20 sacks? Something like 60, 65 pressures? Man, the demonstrable impact you would feel on that defense if they did turn that out, Randall. Look out. Thomas Cox, I have to say I'm encouraged with Zabel, Emuari, Arroyo, Milroe, and Horton playing training camp. If all these players play good, Seattle will be extremely dangerous this season. The more returns you get from the rookie class, the more it does bump this team's potential up. They already got a lot of potential as it is, but that just kind of throws stuff extra on top, doesn't it? Jay says trading Micah and paying Dak and Jake Ferguson would be the most Jerry Jones thing in history. It would be it does kind of fit the time, doesn't it? Oh, Lordy. Jeff Jennings says, I'd rather have a year or two of O-line development before putting Milroe in charge. Another great point there, Jeff. On top of allowing Jalen the time to develop, how about before we put Milroe in there, we make sure that our line is fully fixed, that we've got a running game that's at least pliable and can do some things to take off some of the stress there from the quarterback position. Great point. Another thing that's just a beneficial here to giving this some time. Don't ask a rookie to make way around a makeshift offensive line that's still a work in progress. We know those are the conditions that you set rookie quarterbacks up to fail, especially those rookie quarterbacks that need a little bit of time to develop, right? Thomas says, shoot, Darnold Locke looked good so far in training camp, but the national media overlooks Seattle. It's funny seeing the throw Aaron Rodgers through to DK. I've said at the start, I don't see the connection between those two guys, and nothing I've seen in the throws between those two guys in camp there with Pittsburgh has made me feel any differently on that one. It doesn't look right, does it? Aaron looks like he's throwing left-handed. DK looks like he's got 2 left feet. HHG, JJ kids are just waiting for him to get 6 feet under. Oh, Lordy. Raymond Lives, karma is the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl the year after Jerry goes. I in my mind, Raymond, I picture like something out of the scene in Carrie where it's like Dak raising the Super Bowl trophy up and then cut to the graveyard and Jerry's grave, crypt keeper arm shoots up out of the ground. I'm not dead yet. Let me touch the trophy. Let me touch the trophy. He's like decomposed for about 9 months. I want it, son. Give it to me. Daddy, you're dead. I heard you won. I came back down from heaven for you. I guess who are we kidding? I crawled up from hell for you, son. Let me look at it. Satan will have me back down shortly. Give Sam a chance, man. All we are saying is give Sam a chance. All we are saying. CD Wood's also tired of seeing Darnold took the blame for the last 2 games. If anything, KOC pulled the Shanahan and choked. Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, I don't think Kevin O'Connell put together the best of game plans at the end there. To your point, CD Woods, it's not Sam Darnold's fault when your offensive line collapse. I mean, this is the thing with Sam on this. To your point on this about some of the fans out there in Seattle land that have lost this a bit too with it. I mean, I can get it on the national perspective of it, but because you've seen just the same reverberations of this in Geno Smith. And Geno Smith's game in Seattle in the first 10 games when he first started taking over for us, where he was dynamic, where he was an MVP candidate. People don't remember this, but for those first 10 games of that first year, he was being talked about in that way. And why was he playing at that high water mark for over the last 3 years in Geno's perspective of things? Was it because he was at his best physically? That he was better in year 1 than he was in year 3? No. It was because you had some consistency of a running game rolling through those 10 games, and you had consistency in your pass protection. You gave him those 2 factors, and that let Geno fly. And you remove those factors right about the Tampa game of that year, then onwards through the next 2 years. Geno's still able to play at a passable level, but you're reducing down what the quarterback can do overall as far as their productivity because of the surrounding cast and the conditions you're putting him into. And so that's got to be taken into account with Darnold last year. No Darashaw. You lose O'Neal in the last playoff game. Your interior of your line's crap as it is. They ran the ball fine, but they weren't a dominant running the ball type team. They were middle of the road, kind of slightly less than middle of the road in that way. So yeah, well said, and I agree. But it works this way. I see at times, in doing this for years now, CD, and talking to people sometimes with looking at NFL teams. There's a very heavy draw to go to simplicity. And when you want to, in the football field, there's oftentimes so many complicated things and so many interwoven moving parts that are going on at once that to drive towards simplicity and say, it's all this one guy, he's the bad guy's fault. It's this one bad guy's fault. That's always a place of a wrong path to go in football. It doesn't explain everything that way. There's a majority of blame that can go to one thing or the other, but there's always extra stuff that goes on top that's got to be kind of considered when putting the whole puzzle together, or you're just getting a partial view, for sure. Alicia says, I'm going to both home games for Hawks preseason. Can't wait to see Milroe. Well, it's as others have mentioned on this, Alicia, and congratulations. It's going to be the most exciting of preseason games to get to watch out there with Milroe because he is fun. He's a lot of fun. He's got the big time arm. He's got the mobility, the 4.3 speed. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be very interesting with him. And with Clint Kubiak, he's going to be like a kid in a candy shop a little bit with him in that preseason let's see what you can do on the open road. He's going to take that thing into 5th gear and see what it does 0 to 60. And, why not? So it should make the games all that much more entertaining, Alicia. But congrats. Even more Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, it feels like Arizona players get hurt every offseason. Well, I ain't going to point to the report cards they get, but those training facilities aren't exactly highly graded on the Cardinals docket every year, are they? Feed me. And yes, it does seem like every year they're walking into this time of year and there's a collection of guys that are beat up or injured or not quite right. Last year, it was we had Max Melton and Darius Robinson. I think both of those two guys at this time of year we're dealing with something. So yeah, it does seem like they have a bit of an issue there with keeping guys, healthy and good. Don't know what it is, but definitely seems to be a bit of something at play there. And boy, their cornerback situation, goodness. Down Sterling Thomas, down Sean Murphy Bunting, down Jaden Davis. They're gonna be calling people off the streets here by about week 2 at this rate. Jay says, why would you compare him to Russ if he pans out to be more comparable to Josh Allen? Yeah, that's fair. He's not definitely doesn't have I wouldn't put Russ comps to him for sure. They're both mobile, but a lot else is different about their games. Yeah, Quinn, this would be the year to go to a preseason game, man. I wouldn't normally be one to say, go check out preseason, but Milroe is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm expecting they're going to give him a lot of run. So you're going to not just get the fun of him for like 3 series, but you should get a good 2 to 3 quarters of Milroe in preseason. CD Woods, 95 dropbacks in 2 games. That's 47.5 per game. Geno's season average was 38 under Grubb, by the way. KOC went from a run first to set up Darnold, play action to throw first. Yeah, I think he just kind of did what can happen at times, which this is the best thing our offense does. And that commitment to the running game is, we saw last year with our team here that it's a tough one to have sometimes, CD Woods, that the ability to throw and to be able to get chunk yardage down the field is such a draw. Staying with the running game is just, they ran for show last year. Even before that game, I would say CD Woods, before the last couple of games were, to your point, the dropbacks went so high. And some of the dropbacks, of course, went up in the second games there was you're behind in it. But I think that was a general trend for them throughout the year, where they were pretty effective at running the ball. But I think you could make an argument that there wasn't always the steady commitment from Minnesota last year to stay with the running. And that's because of it's a good thing. I think this is all to the inherent point of your point, is that the reason that you didn't stay with the run game isn't because you don't want to run, but as much as because O'Connell was really liking what Darnold was doing from the passing attack and is like, I want to do more of that. And too much of a good thing. You lean on something just a little bit too much. And you gotta strive for balance. You're really doing this sport now more than ever in this modern era, because defenses are smarter than ever, and they're not just going to let you attack them with one thing. They're going to take that thing away. They're going to force you to be legitimate. And you got to run the ball and show us you're really going to run the ball. We think you're just going to do it for show. Okay, you got 8 yards, or you're going to go back to passing on the next play. Watch. Oh, you try to go back to a pass, and we're there waiting for you on it. No, you need to show them you're going to run over and over and over again if it keeps working. And you're going to not go away from it unless they take that away from you. And that's the beauty of this offense is you show us a light box, we run on you. You go heavier on the box, we're going to get our one-on-one matchups on the outside. We're going to isolate guys. We're going to take advantage of that. Well, what do you want to do? It's the jiu-jitsu of offensive schemes. Your arm goes here, my arm goes there. You wrap your leg here, we wrap this back over here. You twist this, I flip my hips over here, and I go there. It's got a counter kind of to everything, and not all offenses sometimes have counters for everything. They do on paper at times, but not really in full-fledged, workable, practical theory when it plays out on a football field. I'm not predicting Bradford gets cut. Jeff, I'm not. Bradford makes the team, I think. Yeah, I don't think he gets cut at all. Raymond Lives, will fans cheer for Pete and Geno? I would think so. Would think so. Yeah. Thomas Cox says, I think it's funny that Poona Ford will stop teams running the football. Ford is good, but he's no Aaron Donald. Had a really great year there with the Chargers. He's been doing more of the 3-tech stuff, where he made a bit of the Jaron Reed transition that Reed made here in Seattle. And Seattle did kind of the same thing with Reed that you have there with Poonen, in that you have a guy that has a background as a nose tackle in college. You bring him to the pros. You like what he can do as a 3-tech. You transition him to the 3-tech. He gets suited to being a 3-tech. He starts kind of doing away with some of the 2-gapping 1-tech stuff and gets out of the habit of doing that stuff. And then when you move him back into being a 3-tech, then they aren't always as comfortable going back into that old role again. I wonder that a little bit with Poona Ford, because the way that the Rams have set this up with Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, and Ford is he's kind of going to have to take those snaps at nose tackle. And you already have a defensive line last year that was renowned for being really good and getting after the quarterback. And it's a strong defense, don't get me wrong. But the one place you could go after him was that light front, was those weak inside linebackers. And it would seem like they have kind of set the stage to do it once again. There's no doubt they're going to rush the passer. There's no doubt about that. But can they stop the run? I have a big question about the Rams this year and whether or not that's going to be able to be a possibility for them. And a big part of it being is that I don't know who's going to play nose tackle for them. They lost Bobby Brown out of there. They look a little bit light and lean at that position. Just to me. Herbicide, it's hard to find a decent to great left tackle, and none of them are going to be cheap. Extend Cross now, while it's cheap-ish. I would be okay with doing it now. I can understand both camps on this one. I would lean probably into the camp to doing it now because of the fact that there is going to be a substantial discount, and he is part of the future here. So why not? But I'd understand also the sentiment for maybe inside building, thinking that we want to see a little bit more to give him that kind of contract. And, it's also, you can say, what's the point of having the leverage and if you don't use it from time to time? Does Sundell have a mustache too? I don't know. I haven't seen a picture of Sundell. Little Dallas Cowboy, I'm not fuming. Micah's a diva. We could do better than top non-quarterback contract for a team distraction. Jordan Love, spankety spanked Dallas in a wild card, and 2 seconds later, Micah Parsons had love on his podcast. And it's that modern NFL world, Dallas Cowboy, it's like the NBA. Everybody's buddy. Everybody's buddy. But you're out on Micah. Well, then give him over here. We'll throw you a second, third round pick. We'll get you out of that sticky contract situation out there, little Dallas Cowboy. Let us take this problem off your hands. Let us do you this favor. So many have done you wrong lately. Let us help you organizationally. Let us help you. Help us help you. Chris says, I wonder if Arizona would cut Justin Jones or potentially trade him. Thought I heard he could be a cut candidate. They'll definitely try to trade him if he's going to be a cut candidate first. It's the first step to it. But it's somebody to track. Thomas says, do you think Micah silently has requested a trade based off the reaction Jerry Jones has been saying? Jerry Jones is such a maverick. It's so hard to kind of quite pin him down when his reasoning and why he does what he does. Is he doing what he's doing for headlines? He just wants press. Eyes on the Cowboys. Any eyes on the Cowboys are good eyes. Is it him playing contractual games? Is it him thinking he's playing contractual games, but he's just making everybody in the front office face palm every time he opens his mouth? I think it's probably that. I think this deal eventually gets done, but Jerry's going to make it painful. It's just his kind of process, I think, a little bit. I don't think Micah has requested a trade. I think he knows he has that card and he can pull it, but he knows you can only pull that card once, so you want to be careful about when you pull it. But Jerry keeps talking like this and handing out $52 million extensions to Ferguson. Thomas, you know what I mean? Let's give it 2 days. Could be coming down the line. Jeff says, Jerry working hard to screw up his team before the preseason's over. Yeah, his comments the other day just did no favors for anything. I don't get what he's trying to do all the time and what he thinks his comments are doing to help things out. You try to understand, even if you don't agree with a guy popping off like that, you go, well, this was a tactical decision to do this for this reason. But when you can't backtrack to any tactical decision and it's just being done almost just haphazardly without much thought, you go, okay, Grandpa Jerry, Time to put the mic away. Time to zip it. Got to kick. Thomas says, I would be surprised if Seattle kicked the tires on Wilkins. Got to do it, man. Just give him a kick. Doesn't mean you're committed. You just kick the tires, you know? Sit in the car. Maybe it's got a little bit of that fresh car smell to it still, you know? Still got the leather in there. Haven't heard about the throwbacks herbicide. They're teasing him. Teasing him. Jeff says, I'm really interested to see the DK and Aaron Rodgers soap opera this season. It's going to get cringy at some point. You're going to have to look away because you're going to get a little embarrassed. The vibes from Steeler content creators are not great right now. I ain't going to lie to you guys. Look at like urinating tree and like there's definitely some, it's not all kumbaya right now coming out of Steeler land. Maybe they get it right. Maybe they get it together here eventually, but you know. Thomas says, did you hear the O-line did well against the defense line? 1-1, 2-2. Sounds like really encouraging. Yep. I didn't hear, I think basically that. Of course, too, we got to wait till tomorrow, Thomas. Let's see what the pads come on, because till the pads really come on, you can't really tell for sure. But it's good nonetheless. Much better than them getting owned at every turn. King Bomber Arizona is on the cornerback carousel. That's for sure, man. Thank you for my super chat. Did I miss your super chat, man? Steve Edwards, thank you for subscribing to the channel. Let me see here. I'm probably a little slow on a Be Calm. I'm a little bit behind on my donos. There we go. Be Calm. See clearly. Thank you for the $2 donation. A couple $2 donations back to back here. It says Darnold is quarterback number 1. So I wasn't expecting anything else. Nope, I wasn't either. Be Calm. But you know, there's a lot of people already, you know, pounding that pavement, clapping their hands, stomping, going, let's get Milroe out there. He's got it fixed. He's got it corrected. Let's go. But Darnold is the way this year. The best possible season for your Seattle Seahawks, the best possible success, the ultimate best version of your Seattle Seahawks team comes by way of Sam Darnold as your starting cornerback throughout the whole season. That is that. That is it. 100% in agreement with you on that, man. He says Sam Darnold will win the MVP. Bookmark it. Sam MVP. Sam VP. Sam VP. Thank you for the dono, man. I love the confidence in it. And look, guy was a former top 5 first round pick. He's got the talent to be that kind of guy. It's always been with him, whether or not round out the skill set, round out the rough edges. The same type of things you're looking for with Milroe that you say this stuff's going to take time. Got to give him that time, and he can eventually get around to getting these things corrected and fixed to where he can be one hell of a player, a top-end player in this league. Darnold, that's the same thing that came out of him from him reputationally when you had him coming out of USC. The talent is undeniable. The arm talent's undeniable. He can move, and he's got that in his bag. He's tough, former linebacker. All that's built in there. Just got to give him the time for that skill set to round out in all the right ways for him to be the best version of the player he can be. And he seems to be at that stage of things here, Be Calm. He seems to have gone through that Odysseus-like journey to eventually arrive through on that hero's run to eventually get to where he's earned now the chance to be that kind of player. And it's cool to see. You always love to see those stories. This was the same thing that was awesome about Geno, of those guys that put the work in, that just keep grinding, that keep trusting the process, that if I just stay on this every day, I'm not getting the reward today. I'm not getting the reward tomorrow. I'm not getting the reward the day after that. But I'm going to stay on it. I'm going to keep going because eventually I will break through. And Sam's got that kind of mentality, I think. And you love it. You love it. That's the kind of guy you can root for. Be Calm. Sorry, I was a little bit slow on the donos. I've been caught up on the chat just a little bit here. He says, I think you missed my super chats. Well, thank you for all those super chats, my man. And I was a little slow today on those, just a bit. But I appreciate you. And well said on your part. I love your thoughts on the matter. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, Dogzilla, Rodgers and Metcalf are sharing an apartment. You heard that right, too. Such a Pittsburgh thing. You got guys sharing. Okay. Oof. Rodgers doesn't like what DK wears at night. Oh, no. Oh, Lord. Raymond says, can't wait for the first DK fumble as he fights for the extra half yard. I'm just here for the Steeler fans that are going to freak out when he doesn't catch that first back shoulder fade, or Rodgers throws him like 3 in a row and he doesn't able to reel in any of the 3 of them. Yeah, DK's about to get married, I think, King. Yeah, Jeff, don't rush Milroe. Let him develop. Give the kid time. No rush. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing in the Hawks Nest. I'm super excited for Milroe, but give the kid the full Jordan Love treatment. Let him finish cooking before he comes out of the oven. I'm glad to hear so many are in the same place, Jeff, and I'd rather be flying. I mean, this is where I'm at with it, and I just think that Seahawks fans, the more you can embrace this, the better for Milroe. The less that we can be the voices out here calling to the organization to thrust this kid out here, the better, because a lot of organizations, I don't think Seattle's wired this way, but there are a lot of dumb organizations out there that'll be like, well, it'll placate the fans. It'll generate excitement. We don't want to do this here. Excitement doesn't mean a damn thing. What we want is what's best for Jalen Milroe. What we want is to take the path we know is the true and the right path to get Milroe to the best version of himself. And we know that there are so many quarterbacks that have come before Jalen that have been thrown out there into this deep into the pool without learning how to swim, who drowned. And they didn't need to. And they drowned because of organizational stupidity. And we don't have to be that way. We've got the quarterbacks in-house so that we don't have to feel forced to be that way. So give him that time. Let it bake. Give the guy the years that he needs. And when he gets out on the football field, you're going to be so impressed by how prepared he is ready to roll then at the end of that 2-year period. You're going to get the fruits of that at that point in a major, major way. I really believe in it, especially with this kid's work ethic. But if you go too early, if you just can't wait, if you're just chomping at that bit, I think that's a little bit like Star Wars Path to the Dark Side type of stuff. Fear leads to the dark side. Raymond Limbs, what's the over-under on DK personal fouls in the Hawks game? 2. You're getting 1 minimum. Mike Texas thumbnail achieved. Jordan says, I still will never understand why the Steelers won't trade up for a quarterback in the draft. You go from Rudolph to Fields, Wilson to Rodgers. You're lying to yourself if you think you're winning anything. I don't know either on that, Jordan. I don't usually have a good at least guess I can throw out there for you and say, well, it's probably this. Well, there's probably that. On this one, I don't have any good reason. I don't know. I couldn't give you, because part of this with the Steelers organization, so much of what they do you can feel in being their awareness of history and what they've done and the pathway of success that they've had prior and the models that they have in place for what they do. I mean, I think that there's a lot of that goes back decades there. And when you look at the Steelers with Roethlisberger and with Bradshaw, your 2 most successful quarterbacks were 2 very hyper-talented guys for their time. And they were legit. And yeah, now you've tried to kind of get by with less than legit, and that's not been working for you. But they don't seem to, be pivoting off that or trying to take any approach. I even feel like Pickett a couple of years ago was one that was a lot more of that like past history where you once passed on Dan Marino, a kid that went to the University of Pittsburgh, when you needed a quarterback, and your fans didn't let you stop hearing about it for years. And so you had Kenny Pickett going to Pittsburgh and fans saying, don't you let this ever happen again. And that was less about you being sold on Kenny and more about you being like, if Kenny goes out and we pass on him and he goes to a team with the 25th pick in the first round and lights it up, we're going to get flayed by our fandom. And you never want fandom to be driving your decisions. This is the thing back to the Jalen thing. It's like Jalen and the fans harping for him to start as they will throughout the year is not a good thing, and you don't want to listen to them because the fans will oftentimes will not send you in the right direction of things, even when there's a lot of voices saying it. So I don't get what they're doing either, Jordan. They've been a team to me that's been without much of a vision in recent history. They're very reactionary, it feels like, year by year. And they're just going to kind of just every year sort of reshuffle it and try to just make it happen this year. And then, okay, that didn't work. Let's try and make it happen this year. Rather than we've got kind of a plan in place and a point of development. That used to be how you more felt about them in years prior and how they got great teams put together. It was more about the drafting and the development and bringing things along. And they've been a little bit more about microwaving things more recently. Mike Texas, I think Sam is going to thrive with Cup and JSN, let alone how Arroyo fits in. I think so as well. A lot of option routes, a lot of routes built on the more precise you are, the better you are with hands and kind of contested catch situations and tight situations. Guys bearing down on you, the better. Both those guys are well suited for that. Arroyo is really that sort of X factor guy and how he fits and that you can align him just all over the place in this offense and let him attack mismatches. You love that. And the more you can move around a guy, the more you can try to identify a mismatch. Oh, we got a linebacker here who can't cover in space. Oh, we got a safety who is a little bit undersized. I got a 5'9" corner on the outside. Let me get Arroyo out there. These are the ways you can kind of start to, lock in on those mismatches and be able to really target them. First, let's say if you have an inline tight end guy, he's only going to be able to hit so many mismatches from an inline state, right? Grandides are laughing out loud. Brandon, when you were saying that about coming back from the dead, just watched the early 1980s movie Creepshow for like the 20th time yesterday. Creepshow's good, man. Creepshow's underrated. Underrated. That one was one that gave me a little bit of when I was a kid. That one gave me the willies. And there's some dark stories in that one. Especially, Stephen King gets dark, but that's some of his darker stuff in that movie. Realize the couple who got buried to their neck and who came back as like zombies after the guy. Yeah, that was dark. Like the guy catches his wife cheating on him, and then he goes through the whole thing of he buries the wife up to her neck, and then he goes and finds the boyfriend and convinces him to be buried up to his neck, and then plays him a video of the wife having the thing that happened to him that's going to happen to him. Oh my gosh, it was so dark. So dark, but so good too. Creepy film. Guy with the bugs that gets eaten, the box with the monster in it. The guy like feeds his wife to the box monster. Yeah. Jeff Jennings says, I'll say it'll be nice to not have your number one receiver rounding off routes. Yeah, some tough moments from DK last year at times on the rounding out the routes and directly then causing interceptions. And you can watch the 22 and there's a rounding of a route. I'm a big DK benefactor. I've got his jersey behind me. There's from years there with him in Seattle that he was my favorite player during his time here for a lot of those years. But last year was a little bit rough, and there was a little bit of a disconnect. And DK talked a little bit about the reasoning why there was that, I think, a little bit. And the frustration you felt from him on the sidelines when he was asking Grubb if they could just throw past the sticks. So, there's some reason to it, but it's not a good look for a receiver when you round out a route and your quarterback gets picked because of it, especially when it's a close game. And there were some routes there last year where just the effort there wasn't altogether always where it needed to be. And look, he's built big to where he's not always going to be able to run those things super sharp, but those things were pretty heavily rounded. It's pretty hard to find much, explanation for that to DK's side of it going, well, what's he to do? But it's like, that's pretty wide. That's on-ramp wide. El Nino says, really, Russ, compared to watching Peyton in his prime is night and day. If Peyton had a better defense in Indy, he'd be the GOAT. Yeah. Hell, El Nino, Peyton Manning probably had like about 40% left of his arm by that final year in Denver. And literally that grade A defense carried him to a championship, to your point, right? So yeah, it's part of what I think with this is that we can look at great players, we can look at great coaches, and we can be like, well, this guy's this already there, so he's good enough to get by. But it's like, what if you have that? What if you stack great on great? What if you put a great player with great coach? What if you put great players with a great coach? What happens then? And to me, that's when you get the ultimate in NFL football. That's when you get dominance in NFL football. And that's what you should be striving for. Not to just be merely good, but let's go for dominant. And if you got a head coach that's a defensive-minded head coach and you've already leaned in that direction organizationally wise by how you will be driven, lean all the way into it. Kick your head back, put the feet up, lay in that freaking hammock, swing back and forth, stick your hands behind your head, lean into it all the way. Run heavy offense, explosive plays, Mike. That's right. C.D. Wood says Russ kind of got screwed by narratives in his prime. Either he puts up better stats than Cam, but Panthers went nearly undefeated, or he has a better team than Lamar, but Lamar had better stats. Yeah, I think that's fair. That's that little bit of that. That was right at that spot where Russ was being still underrated nationally for how good he was, where he was really a top 3 light quarterback for a couple year period there. I especially say between a couple years in there, between the 16 to 20 years, 2016 to 2020, he was right in that place. But that's pretty accurate. Yeah, I would see it the same way. Dogzilla, thank you for the $2 donation. How many rookies will be on the 53 this year? Seven rookies, Dogzilla. So I'd go Zabel and Mawari, Arroyo, Milrow, Horton, Boots, and Cabledew. We'll go with those 7. We'll go with those 7. I think Riley Mills ends up on the IR for probably most of the year. I think they just stash him. Unless he's really that far ahead of schedule, which I don't think that. I think they find a way to stash him. Y2K, thank you for over 2 years as a Hawks Nest Pro Bowl member. I appreciate that. Says, I could see Rodgers sucking and freaking out at DK. Rodgers definitely is going to have a lot of facial expression moments caught on close up, slow motion. You know, he'll be Rodgers here after DK. After DK drops a back shoulder fade. Okay, you guys ready? I'm going to do a little bit of a, here's Aaron Rodgers just threw the pass to DK and he dropped it. That's Rodgers. Just a lot of gestating and gyrating. It's going to be fun. I'm here for the drama, man. It will be a literal soap opera out there in Pittsburgh. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it's just crazy enough to work, you know? You put 2 volatile parts like that to get together and maybe you get like a synergy. Self-propels itself. Yeah, Brian, RG3 was a much better athlete than Russ. Russ got broke too, or RG got broke, you know, after that first year and the way they used him, and he was never the same. You know, I think he would have had probably a bit of a different career trajectory if that leg had been maintained health, you know, and through. He was also a little bit wispily built though too, so might have also said it was a matter of time with him on that leg as it was, especially the way he played. Be calm, see clearly. Thank you for another $5 donation. I appreciate all of the support today. Be calm. Very, very kind of you. I want Sam Darnold to propel into the next stratosphere, like on another level. Elevate to the stars. So elevated, get well, Osprey, aerial assassin. Let's go. They got me a tongue turner on that one, man. Let's go. I'm with it. Get in my belly. Got that get in my belly energy going there, be calm. And I'm here for it, man. Hey, if Sam Darnold plays as an MVP, the sky is the limit on the potential of this football team. The Super Bowl potential is there for this football team if you have a quarterback playing MVP level of football. There is nothing holding you back. I mean, you just put the basic formula together on it. A top 10 minimum defense to maybe top 5, an MVP level quarterback in the way he's playing, and then a top 5, top 3, top 4 special teams unit in the sport on top of it. Tell me that that's not the conditions for a Super Bowl roster at that point, if that's the way it goes. And does the guy have it in him? Can he elevate himself to that way of things? We will see. But like I did say, you take the guys in the top 5 because you hope they can eventually get to what they offer as far as potential goes. And there's nobody out there that would deny with Sam Darnold, all the people want to talk about the ghosts that he sees in the pockets or how he deals with pressure or that he can't maintain this level of play that he had last year. Nobody will deny that the man's got as good an arm talent as you're going to find in the sport and that he can make every NFL throw in the book and then some, and that he's got also upper level mobility for the position too. He's not going to be Jalen Milroe moving around or Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, but he's also got some real underrated legs that he brings to the position in addition to that. So a full meal deal type player you're getting here. Can he elevate to that final form? We'll see this year. He's in the right offense to do it. He's got the right defense to put him in the right situation to have that success. Good playmakers around him. Hopefully an offensive line that can gel and come together to provide him the protection he needs to get there. Because if the line's not there, you're not getting an MVP level quarterback. You need that part in addition to this to make this roll. But the man's got the talent. Be calm. He's got the ability. He absolutely does. It's just about the development and it continuing forward in that way. Well said, bro. I hope so. I hope so. Yeah, there was some Denver Bronco injuries in the Seahawks Super Bowl game. You had no Von Miller in that game. I think Wolf was out. I think they had lost a cornerback or two. There was a couple of injuries they had in that game. Their left tackle was out, I believe, for the season. But mainly the defense. I think the defense had like 3 or 4 starters out. Be calm, see clearly. Thank you for another $5, man. Appreciate all of the support today. You are awesome, bro. So very grateful for that. Says, I won't sell my soul for Micah Parsons, but I'm not saying I'm not thinking about it. Sign him and trade him to Seattle. Problem solved. I'm completely open to it. I think that these kind of situations are ones that don't always present themselves to you for these kind of guys that have his ability and can bring to the table all that he can bring to the table. You'd have a puzzle piece you bring to Micah Parsons as well. We don't talk about this a lot, but on top of what he brings as a pass rusher and all of what he brings as a dynamic edge, remember as well that this is a guy with a background as an inside linebacker. So in Mike McDonald's defense, what's the thing that he loves most and best? Versatility and flexibility. Can you do a variety of different things on the field? Can I have you set up as this prior to the snap and then have you be that post-snap? Can I take a Micah Parsons and set you up as the edge and then post-snap turn you into a Mike linebacker in the middle of the field covering? Yeah, you can with Micah. It gives him endless possibilities for confusion and plays you can draw up. Because the thing about it is when you have a Micah Parsons out there and he's kind of like a whole planet unto himself and that offensive linemen and pass protections will tend to orbit around these guys, is that you get them with an offensive line starting to concentrate on him prior to the snap, devoting resources to him prior to the snap, and then he drops somewhere else. The resources go there. You bring guys from this other side. You get free rushers. You start blasting quarterbacks when they're not expecting it. So there's a lot of force multiplier things that you get with Micah Parsons bringing him in here if you're able to do it. And that's why I'm on board with doing this, is that the fit's so good. You know, you've got familiarity with the background here. This is not the Percy Harvin, Jimmy Graham, Jamal Adams trade. Percy Harvin had some head case issues going on prior to Seattle that you signed up for, but you were well aware of prior to coming in that probably should have given you some hesitancy there. I don't think that those same things exist there with Micah Parsons. With Jimmy Graham, he was an H-back, slot wide receiver about 67% of the time with the Saints. You turned him into more of an inline guy. Well, you can see where that failed. Jamal Adams, You blitz the ever-loving hell out of him in the first year and then kind of stop doing it after that, turning him into a cover 2 shell, cover 2 safety, which was not a fit to his skills. So utilization, again, was the problem with Jamal. You're not going to have that problem with Micah here. Your defensive coordinator literally has worked with him prior. He's not going to misuse him out of position or put him in the wrong area. So if it's the price is right, if the Cowboys are willing, the cost is not too great, I'm open to it. Little Dallas Cowboy, you want Micah? You got to take Dak too. No. We just paid our quarterback, man. We don't got the money for that. Roofie him so he signs a waiver of the clause or whatever. No. We're not taking that on. I'm not taking Dak on. We will take one of your problems. We're not taking all of your problems, okay? Little Dallas Cowboy. We're not here to solve all of your Cowboy problems. We'll lend a helping hand for Micah, okay? Out of the charity and goodness of our heart, we shall help you alleviate this issue with Micah Parsons. But that you don't overstay the welcome here on this one. Don't be asking for too much goodwill. We're already taking Micah off your hands. We're already going that extra mile. Kieran says, Micah said in the press he was still happy to be on the Cowboys, even with Jerry talking S. Yeah, I think Micah's going to end up playing there too, the Dallas Cowboy. I mean, we're talking a bit about this, and I think it's a bit of a fluid situation with these kind of negotiations because you never know when they turn south, go sideways, T-bone on the freeway. But as it stands right now, I think that the deal still probably gets done there in Dallas, one way or the other. Yeah, Jordan, I think even though there was injuries with the Denver defense in 2013, that's still not a team that's going to beat Seattle on that day. I mean, we're going to win no matter what, whoever they throw out there on that squad. That part's also for sure. CD Woods, if we did look at Wilkins, what would be a realistic timetable for a return to hit the field? Not up to date on the injury situation. I've heard some back and forth on the whole injury situation. There's what the team has said. There's what the player has said. It seems to be there's a little bit of some question on that. The whole situation's got a bit of a big question mark over the top of it. What caused this? Is it really the foot? Is it something off the field? Is it? I've heard a couple of different things on this, which have made it kind of hard to pin down exactly. I'll be calm. See clearly. Thank you for the $2 donation. Says days of our Steelers' lives, laughing out loud. What a clown show. Yeah, this is going to be. I feel like this is going to be a year where the Steelers have been, for year in and year out, a team that's either been right about middle of the road or a little bit better than middle of the road here for years now. And we may be actually seeing this being the year where there is more of the boom-bust quotient here with this Steeler team this year. Like this either just is magnificent and it lights it up, or this thing falls flat on its freaking face. I don't know if we're going to find an in-between phase here with the Steeler team this year. And I'm betting more flat on the face. Dallas Cowboys, zip it good. I'm getting your super chats, Big Call. I'm sorry, man. Sometimes I get caught up on the chat. You know how it is, man. Sometimes I get locked in on the chat. Chase Stern, thank you for the $10 donation, Chase. What player are you most excited about in the future? Mine is Nick Emenwari. It's a good one. I would say the two that I would go between would be Zabel and Horton. With Horton, it's just, I always am going to geek out if you can find receiver value late for a guy that can ascend and become a starter for you and a quality starter at that. To be able to go and pluck that into the 5th round is, to me, just tremendous. I mean, that's what drafting is all about, to find those kind of guys, especially for in the wide receiver position, which is such a high value position, Chase. It's so well, if there's anybody that's got any ability, they're going to get taken high. And so you to get one now later, just better than ever to pull that off. More impressive than ever to pull that off. With Zabel, this comes down to this offensive line needing to get fixed, yes, but also just that we have more impact from these linemen than we've had in the past. More guys that are just not holding on for dear life play after play, but can go out there and get the job done. And with Zabel, I'm really excited for that, because with that then portends the potential of this team really truly then building an offensive line that can be legit for the first time in years. Not to mention, we don't have much behind him. So I'm just like, please, this has got to work good. And Moore is a good one, though. That'd probably be my third one of the bunch there, Chase. Him and this Mike McDonald defense, the ultimate movable piece where you can put him anywhere you want to go put him. Ask him to do a variety of things, and he can be comfortable doing any of those things, not to mention impactful doing any of those things. So Mbawari is a great choice. But those other two guys, for just those two separate reasons, would be probably more of the way I would lean as far as I'm most excited on those ones, because Zabel locks in, your two tackles lock in, and now we're starting to, from what was 3 years ago, a thing that needed to be built up from the ground up, being your offensive line, to now we've got some real suitable parts in place, and now it's just finalizing the last of it. And then how good the offense will be when we get to that stage of things versus where they've been. How much of a night and day difference it'll look when we can get to that point, but only if Zabel can actually be that good, right? Thank you, though, Chase. I appreciate the $10 donation. You are awesome, brother. Be calm, see clearly with so many donos today. I can't even keep track, man. Thank you for all the donos. November 30th, Sam Darnold at Lumen. Lick back. Oh, the Viking game last year. Yeah, that certainly is going to be a game where when John Schneider's coming to Mike McDonald talking to him about the quarterback position, he's going to be saying, okay, well, we let Geno go. We maybe bring in Sam Darnold. What do you think about that? And I think that he was very impressed by the things that he saw from Sam Darnold in that game against Seattle in their house. Specifically, I think that was a day where I think Mike McDonald probably thought he had some things dialed up really well up against Sam. And, the one play that really does stand out, of course, is when you have Derek Hall bringing some pressure off the edge. Hall does get held on the play, doesn't get called. But Sam Darnold does a good job of climbing the ladder in the pocket, stepping up, and then just with the little flip of his wrist, sending a ball 40 yards down the field with some velocity, and able to fit it in there to Justin Jefferson deep before the safety can close in over the top. And he was able to get that ball with that velocity there before the safety gets there, fits it into a hole after he steps up. There's some other things he did that was good in that game, but I think that McDonald looks at that kind of performance and he's like, those are the toughest kind of quarterbacks to play, or the quarterbacks that I can dial up the right thing. I can dial up the play to beat the play you've called, but your quarterback finds a way to overcome that. And I know that's maybe not a way that Be Calm, a lot of people out there would look at Sam Darnold in that fashion of it, but I think that that's a little bit of probably what Mike McDonald thinks about him and what he saw from his performance last year. And probably has a belief that he's going to be able to build upon that further and continue to replicate that more into the future, that the light bulb has essentially gone on for Sam Darnold. Jeff Jennings, thank you for the $5 donation, Jeff. He says, I enjoy the conversation. We need them. Well, we'll keep this rolling throughout the year this year as much as absolutely possible. I'll be doing the daily shows, and there'll be a bit of a mix in the daily shows between sometimes doing them midday to sometimes doing them later on in the evening. We'll kind of keep that mixed up, but we'll try to do as many of these chats as we can on it. I love doing it and getting kind of a feel for where you guys are at mentally and where you guys are, what you guys are thinking. Not to mention, you guys always have me thinking here, Jeff, about stuff that I hadn't considered walking into it. But thank you, man. I really appreciate you watching and participate, being an active member in the chat and all that good stuff. But very kind of all of you become all the donations you dropped today. Chase with the $10 dono, Jeff. You guys are amazing in your support of the channel. We've had more members now, patrons now than ever before. It's been really, really cool. Everything you guys have done for this channel, and it's been for me here for just years now. You guys have had my back in that way. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. You guys make this channel go in that way. And we got some big things on deck for this upcoming season, that's for sure. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you. Jeff Jennings over under on DK drops against us. Well, you know DK is going to be in the OC's ear throughout the week saying, you got to feed me. So he's going to want like 13 targets in that game. I got to go 3. Just because the targets are going to be so high, Jeff, that the opportunities for the drops will be more increased with it too. And then Aaron's going to force some things in there at times to where it's going to be a real tough catch for DK. You know, guy hanging off of him, sideline right here, ball low. I think we're going to get a couple that day. Kieran says, in all probability, Sam will be fine, but not great, and miss a game or 2. The question will be, will that be enough come next offseason, and will Milroe bust the door down? That will be a bit of a question at play, man. And of course, a big part of that's going to be on the basis of, like you say, is he busting it down, or is he just kind of slowly twisting the knob and easing it open? Because it'll take, I think, a busting it down to get in there in the first 2 years here, I would say. Herbicide's got DK for 4 drops. DK reported to have struggled in pit camp. There's some cut-ups that have been a little bit of some struggles there with him there, yeah. It hasn't been seamless and great. But new player, new team, new quarterback. We give DK some time on this one, too. We'll see where it goes with that. Jordan says the Steelers are going to regret having Rodgers. They should have kept Wilson. Agreed 100%. I don't get the whole thing with bringing in DK at that point is let's maximize out DK. I mean, you're not going to look between Rodgers or Wilson or any other quarterback that was available in the market. There wasn't a great QB to go pick at that point. You've made the decision that we're going to trade for DK. You've made the decision we're all in for the season. We're going to give TJ Watt this extension. You've made these decisions. Now, these decisions inform other decisions. And to me, at that point, a guy like Russell Wilson is by far going to get way more out of a DK than an Aaron Rodgers is. And that's even if we want to, I would even acknowledge that as saying that maybe even Aaron Rodgers at this point is still even a little bit better than where Wilson is right now as a player. Overall, he's still, but that doesn't mean that he's a better connection for DK. It's kind of just a weird situation. I would have done the same thing, Jordan. Can we say Steelers are a dumb organization with how they treat the quarterback position? I think you start to move into this territory. Roethlisberger's been retired for a good deal of time at this point. And Lord knows you held on to Roethlisberger until the bitter end. I mean, that guy had a beer belly and then some by the end. Freaking the gangly beard down to his knees. You know, barely could move. It's like a Frankenstein out there, and they were still like, trot him out there again another year. Let's try one more time. So, they haven't been aggressive, as somebody else said above on it. They haven't tried to target a guy. They haven't really tried to be aggressive. Pickett just kind of landed in their lap at 20th, so they're like, I guess we'll just take him. But they're getting into that territory of things. Chris has got Root Sports on. Want to tear up here in Niehaus voice with an old game playing. Oh, that's cool. Herbicide DK doesn't like Rodgers' tinfoil hats cluttering up the place. Addicted, Brandon, why are you discussing Darnold versus Milroe? Come on, Drew Lock is back on the roster. That's my guy. Nah, I forgot about the hose. The hose man. Hose man. He's having a good camp too, sounds like. Yeah, congrats to Ichiro. And how about the big dumper knocking out 41st home run today? He is doing some amazing things. Come on, Mariner offense. Goodness. They just have some days where they just can't, it just doesn't matter. It ain't happening. Jeff says, I think it'll be an apparent on Milroe on the development he'll need during the preseason. There'll be some oohs and some ahs. Yeah, I think it's going to be exactly that, Jeff. There'll definitely be those moments where you're seeing some of the growth coming along with him and the steps he's taking forward. But you're still also all going to feel from him that this is still a work in progress. And it's not just going to be him out there throwing 15 of 18 in the preseason through 3 quarters for 260 yards. It's not how this is going to roll. There'll be some really eye-popping moments, and there'll be some moments where you're like, whoa, that was rough. And I'll tell you this right now, there's going to be some rough throws on him on the short throws especially. So don't dirt him up just for the fact he dirted a throw up. That's a 4-yard out route throw. It's just a little bit of him working out the kinks. Yeah, Steelers perpetually mid's right, Jeff. Brian says, B, you can only have one. A vet cornerback, a big nose tackle, or a vet interior offensive line depth. Big nose tackle, Brian, because then it's the multiplier back to then freeing Murphy up. So you get the guy that gives you better quality at the nose tackle than what you have, and then you also get the benefit of becoming more dynamic at the 3-tech position. I'll go there with it. Donnie, how you doing? Hope everyone's doing well, doing great tonight. I did update my profile pic a few days back. Looking good. Looking real good. Ricky Ricardo. How you doing, Ricky? Hey, legend. I know he's a 3rd or 4th string running back, but do you think the McIntosh injury still hurts because of his unique fit in the OC system? Also, why didn't Grubb use him in the passing game more? This does hurt. I think, Ricky, it does. For a couple of reasons. Number one, it hurts because I think McIntosh is a legitimately decently talented running back. That he's not just a jag guy. That he's a guy that's got actually a little bit of juice to him. And he would have fit to this system with his explosiveness. I know he's not as much speed guy, but he's got the explosiveness you do look for from running backs, the ability to fight through tackles, hit the hole fast, be decisive, extend runs. Those are things he can do. You talk about what he is as a pass catcher, that we didn't get to see him utilized much in that way. I can guess on this that Grubb liked Charbonnet better as a pass protector as the 3rd down back role, more than he loved the pass catching ability of McIntosh out of the backfield. But Ricky, that's just a guess. I don't know for sure on that one, because I would have thought that they would have used more of McIntosh out of the backfield too over the last couple of years, just because he has got a lot of hybridic qualities to him. He can do a lot of receiver type stuff. So hard to say on that one. But it does hurt a little bit to the depth. This was your probably strongest roster position that you have, running back walking into camp. I mean, you basically were 5 deep when you count Holani, and that you'd feel good about getting any of these 5 guys some carries. So I think they're okay to overcome it, but it does sting a little bit because I think he would have had a role on this team this year, a little bit at least. A little bit at least. Jordan says, what is the Creep Show episode where action figures turn into life? I don't know. Was that part 2? Leslie Nielsen's darkest role. That's right. He was the jealous husband of the wife. And then Ted Danson was the cheating dude. Danson at one point, Leslie Nielsen puts his foot in the door to keep Danson from closing the door, and Danson's like, I wouldn't put my foot in the door. I bench 350. I'm like, sure you do, Ted. Raiders did pick up Jamal Adams, Kevin. Sounds like he's going to play linebacker with the Raiders. We'll see how that works. Alpha Zucks drafts an offensive line of Cross, Zabel, Olu, Haynes, Sundell, Lucas. Seems like it could be very good with this scheme. Sundell feels like a guy who could do very good things under Kubiak. Definitely fits to what Kubiak likes from your lineman here with his mobility and his athleticism. So Sundell might just find himself into the lineup somehow or another with that ability to move. That's for sure. Jordan says Stephen King movies are generally only good based on how the director takes the story. Yeah, I mean, even in the Creep Show movie that was out, how many movies were there through the 80s of King that were just, not good? There are some people that get them right, like Misery, Carrie, but then you get movies like Salem's Lot, where it's like, just that they struggle to capture it. I think you're right about the directors and how they approach, how they approach it, and if they're going after it in the right way, and capturing the tone correctly. It does. But there's some good ones too. Walken's got the one with the dead zone, I think it is. Another good one. Shining is a great movie. Even though he made the movie King didn't really want him to make with it, it still kind of captured King's essence a little bit at the same time. I like the first It too, Jordan. I wasn't as big on the second one. The first one I liked a little bit more. Maybe it was the portrayal, Pennywise. What's the guy's name? Such a good actor in the first one. Kieran says Peyton Manning literally scored too quickly, so his defenses had to be smaller and have more endurance because they knew they were going to be on the field 2/3 of every game. That's different, though. Yeah, that is a little bit different. But you're right about that, man. They would score fast. It wasn't even them running the hurry up. They would just chunks of play up the football field. Jeff says one thing's needed this year: turnovers. Looking at you, Spoon and Rig. That's right. I need a combination of 10 interceptions between the two of you. Minimum. I did see Dr. Sleep Herbicide. Underrated movie over the last couple of years. That's a sequel that has no right to be as good as it is. I mean, you're waiting 30 years to do a sequel to The Shining, but it works. Ewan McGregor does a really good job with it too. Highly recommend that movie. Yeah, Alpha Sucks. Martinez definitely making the roster. Aaron Rodgers will be smelling farts on TV every play. Jeff Jennings, thank you for the 5. Or again, appreciate you for that. Jeff Jennings, Oots, can hear it now. I'm going to have I got to go to the audio library on YouTube here. I'm going to find me a house beat for it, Jeff. So every time Oots gets a carry, I'll turn on the house beat and then it'll be Oots, 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 Oots. It's going to be cool. Trust me, it'll be cool when I do it. Kieran says, all I know is the Vikings are scared they got rid of the wrong guy. I still think he'll play fine, but it won't be obvious to hold on to his contract or re-up next offseason. But it won't be obvious to hold on to his contract or re-up next offseason. Yeah, I think I think with him, whether he will establish how he played last year, Kieran, or not, I don't know on that. But I do think that there's going to be a solid floor to what Sam brings, and that it's not that you're going to get there really is no reality here where you're getting the worst version of Sam Darnold that we got in New York. That's not what you're going to get here. And it's quite unfair to try to paint it as that. That won't be the case. Now, does he hit the high end mark to your point on that as well? We'll see on that. But I think, you're at the very least somewhere in the minimum as the bare minimum floor to his level of play too. Kieran says DeMarcus will not be happy that Micah followed him to Seattle. Ha ha. Maybe not. And maybe not. That would be an interesting part of that trade if he made it. We'll see on Bobo. I don't know with him on that. We'll throw in CD, just get Dak. And so we get Dak, CD, and Micah. What are you going to want back for that, Dallas Cowboy? I feel like we're going to have to give you way too much back in return at that point. I don't know if we've got enough money in our wallet for that. Jeff says Jerry will talk Mike out of Dallas. That's what I'm kind of hoping he's in the process of doing. Jerry comes around. Look, no. I woke up last night, Steven. Woke up last night and I said, don't pay that money. It was like God himself, Steven said to me. Don't. Daddy, that's not God. That's just your cheap nature. You always don't want to pay, Daddy. You got to pay. Shut up, boy. Shut up. Go eat some more of your pie. How did you know I had pie in the fridge? You always got pie in the fridge. I'm telling you, this was the voice of God himself. God loves Dallas. He's America's team. It's God's team. He said, Jerry, you're the best owner in the world, Jerry. Best owner in the world ain't paying Micah Parsons. And you know what, Stephen? What, Daddy? God's right. He's right. And you know what God told me too? What'd he tell you, Daddy? He said, you got to balance back off the universe. He said, 25 years ago, Seattle did you wrong. They did you dirty. They took 2 first-round picks from you. They stole them first-round picks. They told you Joey Galloway was good. He wasn't. They told you Joey was dynamic. He wasn't. Mike Holmgren, I'll never forgive that fat face son of a bitch ever again. I'll tell you that right now. Never again. We get him back now, Stephen. The plan comes back. Revenge is best served on a dish cold. Spock said it, I'm telling you, man. Daddy, it's a long time ago, that Joey trade. He was relatively productive for us. It was okay for us. No, they screwed us. They did us dirty. We do them dirty now. We do the same to them. I want to do them dirty by giving them Micah. We do Seattle dirty and give him Micah Parsons. We bring balance back. God said, bring balance back to the universe. And that's what we're going to do. Rockman Drums just watched old Seahawks Packers division game. MBS was on the Packers, Griffin on the Hawks. Laughing out loud, they are Hawks now. Well, long time ago. Long time ago. El Nino, good that Shedeur landed in the division rival. Oh, and the report is Pickett pulls a hamstring. Ooh, Shedeur might be the starter yet there. Rolling, Vegas still 7.5 over under on the wins. If the Hawks win 7 games and the Raiders win 10, oh my, John will have an egg on his face. Mr. Dog, any chance we do trade or anything before the season starts? I think that there's a very decent chance of it, Mr. Dog. I don't have a name that's just bubbling at the surface here, but I will say you're sitting on $40 million of cap space. John Schneider has never at this time of year in the last 14 years been sitting on this amount of cap space. He's not really a guy on the open market to spend that money on. You would think that he's going to probably try to target somebody, I would think, at some point, whether it's just before the start of the season or just before the trade deadline. You're going to get something at some point, I think, Mr. Dog. I don't think you're just going to sit on this money and just kind of let it lie, especially considering that you're already sitting on $67 million of dead money. So if you don't spend this money, it's like almost $100 million that's just kind of going to the wind this year. And if you're trying to be a contender in any kind of way, that starts to get hard to make that happen if that's the way you're going to roll this. Herbicide, we need to get another edge. I think we do, Herbicide. El Nino, it'll be interesting on the not active 3 quarterbacks thing, because the thing with not having the emergency quarterback is that, okay, he's the emergency quarterback. He can't play until he comes off. So are you able to do that with Drew Lock? And you have Jalen Milroe come out there in a smattering of snaps. And then I think the way that works is you have to have both of your 2 quarterbacks then go down for that guy to come out there. But the intention is kind of to have Drew Lock be the backup quarterback if Sam Darnold goes down. So I don't know how this is going to roll with that, but I would think that then that means that you're going to have 3 active quarterbacks because of it. Because the intention, by the way, the coaching staff has talked about this, is not to go to Jalen Milroe as the number 2 this year, but to go to Drew Lock as the number 2 when you have to do that. Brian Meyer says, don't forget Sims is almost a lock for kick returner, punt returner. Maybe. Yeah, there's the emergency quarterback, Herbicide, but I think that only happens if your 2 quarterbacks go down. So Milroe would have to be injured as well for you to be able to then call upon Lock in a game, I think, if you're going to do it that way versus having just the 3 quarterbacks active. But see, so Dallas Cowboy confirms that. So that's the way where you have to have the 3 active. You can't play this game where you have Drew Lock as your backup, because if Sam Darnold goes down, you got to then go to Jalen. And so if you bring in Drew Lock, essentially you're saying Jalen can't play either and that he's also injured, and you're then down to 1 quarterback there. So this is where it's going to be the 3 QBs they go active with on game day. BP 1989, how you doing, man? I think, too, the thing that makes it to where it's going to be the 3 quarterbacks this year is the fact you're looking to utilize Jalen Milroe as a puzzle piece during the game, as a part during the game, that he's getting snaps during the game in addition to this. So that's where you have the Drew Lock's your main backup. Jalen Milroe's your gadgety guy coming out for 6-7% of the snaps a game. So you end up needing everybody active essentially at that point. But you would not have normally done this in any other kind of circumstance. It normally would have just been a 2 quarterbacks active. El Nino Commanders will have a more difficult season playing a second place schedule versus a fourth place schedule this season. Yeah, I think they've got a little bit of a tougher schedule set up. And last year, I think they had a little bit of an easier one. To your point, El Nino set up when you look back at it. Harrigan says, DK is hardly going to get thrown to against us. Rodgers is going to throw a check down virtually every play, and unless DK is the check down, maybe not. Paulie says, the only thing I want out of Milroe was just to play well enough to not have to carry 3 quarterbacks. Feel like that means letting a good player walk. I can understand the trepidation here, I do. But I do think that this is just kind of the plan that's in place, that the team's already kind of made their peace with doing it this way. And a big part of this, Paulie, comes from the fact that you don't want to get to a place where you really have to play Milroe. Not as a starter, at least. You're willing to play him, but just you don't want to play him like a starter. Yeah, Jeff, DK still struggles to high point the ball and uses his hands to the utmost. And I love DK. There's a lot of great parts to his game that I think had improved through time. I don't think that the hands improved through time. And I think if anything, there's been a little bit of a slight regression with his hands the past couple of years. Addicted Brandon, instead of throwing the deep ball to DK against Reek, won't they throw short balls to DK and watch Reek make the tackle? Oh, wait. Well, Dallas, odds on LeBron and Luka winning a ring this year? 6%. I think LeBron's finally getting age catching up to him, and there's a bit of redundancy with those two on the court at the same time and what they do. They need to add a different piece in there to make that work. Chris says losing Kenny definitely hurts. Running back depth is crucial if history tells us anything. We've had a lot of guys through the years get injured in recent years at the running back position, and you have to call upon that depth. Kenneth Walker can't get through one season healthy yet. So it's definitely a bit of a ding when you lose one of these guys. Chances are you're going to have to call upon them. HEG prediction for week 1, Hawks, 35-10. Let's go. Yeah, Dead Zone was a good one. There's been some solid King movies. There's been some stinkers and some bad ones and some laughable ones and some way too campy ones. There's been some good solid ones too. Tim Curry. Yeah, that's the name, Brian. Thank you. Saved me on that one. I'll tell you what, my memory is just, come on, memory. Brad, the question about the action figures coming to life, maybe from the TV series, Dark Room, Siege of 31, August, a Vietnam veteran turned farmer buys his son a military playset, but he keeps hearing battle noise in the night and he discovers the toy soldiers are alive. Oh. I'm going to have to see if I can find that on YouTube. I didn't watch much of the series, Creep Show. Kieran says, I do agree there's a floor with Sammy D for sure. I think the truth of how he's going to perform will be between last year and some theoretical low. The truth is usually in the middle. Yeah, exactly. And you've set the stage here to where you could be a successful team this year without him performing at the mark of even where he was at last year with Minnesota. I mean, you're hoping to set a situation up where that can be the case. And, maybe with it as well, that you don't have as much of the top end to hit the 14-win mark that they hit last year, that instead you have to be satiated and happy with an 11 or 12-win season. But you can still be very dynamic. You can still be an elite team in this sport this year with him still playing just a little bit lesser than even where he was last year. Kind of speaks to how good he was last year and how well he played, that he can take that little half step back. But he's not going to take the 3 or 4 steps back and be some shell of himself or back to the old Darnold. That's not going to happen. Brian says, B, if you gave a number to call and impersonate Jerry, would you do it? I probably would do it. See if I get away with it. Kieran says, get me on Micah's podcast as Jerry. I'd have Micah cracking up, I guarantee you. Grandizer, Brando, the smell of death is all around. In the night when the cold wind blows, no one cares. Nobody knows. I don't want to be buried in a pet cemetery. I don't want to live my life again. That's another good one, Pet Cemetery. Addicted, Brandon, I watched your Robbie Oots video today. Love the idea of Robbie and Milroe on the field in the red zone. Milroe looked great between the A and B gap and on the edge in some of the highlights. Yeah, he's a really good strong runner with the football out of those read option looks because he's so strong with the ball in his hands. And that, yeah, he's fast and he's strong, but he's also got that really good contact balance to where he can fight through ankle tackles where you've got to legitimately bring down. Can we stop this kitty, please? Thank you so much. To where you can legitimately fight through those tackles. What are you doing? What is this whole move you're doing right now? This is the indicator I've gone on for a long time today. But Oots and him should work well together. Read option looks, have the fullback in there coming back across the formation, land in wham blocks. They did a lot of that at Alabama with Robbie Oots. There's a lot of little kind of little details and little bit of differences you can run between the play and how you make it look. And without allowing the defense to get keyed in on everything like, oh, he's out here running the read option. They're going to run it to this side. You can do a lot of the pre-snap motion and movement stuff with that to be able to throw the defenses kind of off the scent a little bit and how you roll that. But I expect Milroe is going to be very dynamic as a, okay. He'll be very dynamic as a red zone threat. Man, that's one of the ways that they're going to use him in those sort of 6% of the snaps of the game. He's come out there for a few of those reps because that's where he could really make some money for this team. Ursa says King wrote so much. What does he have, like 20 movies? Oh, I think he's got more than that. I think like Jordan says, if I had to pick between 20 or 80, I'd probably go more to 80 when you consider all of the movies and all of the miniseries that he's had done off of his books. I mean, he's had some of his movies have been redone a couple of times. I mean, haven't they done like Carrie twice? Haven't they done Salem's Lot twice? And we're probably just about to get to a whole bunch of more remakes. They've done Pet Sematary twice. So, yeah, he's got a lot of movies out there. He's had a lot of run. Quite prolific King, too, to be able to write as much as he did. I know. Kieran says, getting Oots with Milroe is a very stingy grade move. Your lead blocker in a triple option is critical for relief valve purposes. That's right. Yeah. That's a guy that'll be able to work well in there with Milroe and understand these blocking concepts. We're going to run with Milroe too, Kieran, right? He's going to understand what you're going to want to look for key-wise, where you want the direction to go. I mean, this is a big part of the zone blocking system is that you're blocking to space, not blocking to man. You're going to block to space. And that's where this should work out really well with those guys. I think it'll be a dynamic combination between the two of them. Children of the Corn, hilarious film. Yeah, that's one of those more of the campier ones. Stand By Me. That's one of the really weird things with King is he's this horror guy. But some of the greatest films have been movies that are not horror movies, that are sort of the straight line, just legit. There's no magical, fantastical, no monster within it. The Shawshank Redemption is one that comes to mind. That's an all-time movie for me. I mean, that's top 10 on my all-time list. And so it's kind of weird with him, where sometimes the straightforward non-horror stuff is some of his best stuff. Stand By Me. Pumpkin is our leader. She is our leader. Grandizer said, Pumpkin said, did you say Pet Cemetery? Addicted Brandon, I'm thinking Milroe, Oots, and Charbonnet in the backfield. Defense, pick your poison. Yeah, I'm thinking that too. I think Charbonnet's a little bit better in the read option game, I think, than Walker is. Walker's going to be a little bit better in the under center outside zone plays that you run. So when you want to stretch the field out there in that way, I'd see it that way. And this also fits to when you've had the third down back over the last couple of years. You've tended to go to Charbonnet anyway because he's the better pass protector back there between him and Walker. He's just a little bit bigger, more able to do it. So yeah, I think that's going to be a nice little look between those three guys in there. And that's a lot of beef, man. Oots, Charbonnet, Milrow. That's a lot of beef to have to take care of and be aware of. Any of those guys get the ball, you might end up with two of those guys lead blocking. It might get a little tough there. Karen says, Hollywood's going to reboot The Shining. Oh yeah, that's coming. They'll redo all the King books here probably pretty shortly. Some of them will be tougher to do though because some of them are so much of a product of their time, before cell phones, before computers. So are you going to try to modernize them? And some of the stories maybe don't work as well modernized up. King's out. Brandon Horton had a good day. Can he be the X factor third receiver? We'll need behind Kupp and JSN. There's legitimate talent in Horton in his ability, King. The kid had 2,000-yard seasons before his final year in college where it was injury shortened, still had 400 yards receiving, dynamic as a punt returner as well throughout his college career. So there's a lot he brings to the table. As you mentioned, he is a complete outside kind of receiver. He's a guy that, though he's a little bit lighter and leaner, he can work off press coverage. He can work off the line of scrimmage. He's got that ability in him. So I think he's a true player in this, both short-term and long-term. Questions with him are really in regards to where is his health at, King's out, with the injury that kind of took him down last year. And you wonder a bit about it too, as to when you have a guy like this to where you go, man, how'd this guy drop? This guy all the way to the 5th round, this talented guy, this guy that was so productive in his college career. You can sometimes come to find that injury thing was a red flag for some NFL teams and that they walked away from it saying, look, we're taking him off our board because we don't think this thing's ever going to be back at 100%. And sometimes those teams are right about that. Sometimes they're proven correct. So we'll just have to kind of see with time with him. But the talent's true with him, dynamic with the ball in his hands. He's got moves. He's got a real nice hesitation move in the open field. Sort of just does the old Top Gun, I'll hit the brakes and he'll blow right past me kind of move. He's got that in him. G. Alexander says, with the injury to McIntosh, do you think the Seahawks prioritize a running back in the draft coming up? I do think that there's going to be a prioritization of a running back in the draft. This is, again, in a place, Alexander, I would say, which is going to be heavy guessing territory on my part. So this is me definitely trying to read what John Schneider has done in the past, kind of read into that a little bit, and then kind of reapply it here to the modern era of what's going on. John in the past has been willing to pay running backs, but I think that hasn't always worked out in his favor in being willing to pay running backs, that it hasn't benefited the team in doing that. I think that there's something to maybe be said there that he's a bit of learned his lesson on this, and that while he'd be willing to maybe take a running back high in the draft, there's a difference between willing to take a running back relatively high in the draft and then being willing to actually pay a guy really good market money. And running back contracts are going to go up a little bit here with some of the contracts that were given out last offseason to the likes of Henry and Barkley and Pollard and DeAndre Swift got a deal and Josh Jacobs got a deal. So while running back has been a devalued position, they have been starting to get paid just a little bit more. I think John, if I was John at least on this, I would be going, look, I'll draft guys high. I'll get them on the rookie contract. I'll get the most out of that rookie contract. And then after year 4, we're going to move on. So that lends us into next year. Kenneth Walker's a free agent after this season. I think you're likely to let him go. You don't know where Kenny McIntosh's health is going to be back after next year. You'll have Charbonnet for only one more year of his rookie deal before he's due to come up for a contract decision. And so having a running back on the roster for insurance purposes at that point would probably make a lot of sense. So I do think you're going to target a running back. Will it be all the way up in the 2nd round like you did with Charbonnet and Walker? I don't know on that, G. Alexander, but probably within the first 3 rounds if you're letting Walker walk. But that's where this is going to be dependent on what you do with the Walker situation. You sign him to some contract extension, then probably not. But if you don't, then absolutely. Dolores Claiborne with Kathy Bates. That's right, Misery. There's another good one. The Great Hobbling. Seth Parkinson, The Great Horror Movie Story. Pete Carroll's Pete Cemetery about the 2025 Raiders. Is he bringing up a zombie team, Seth? Riverside says, I have no problems watching old movies. Remakes are stupid. If they want to remake movies, they should pick movies that missed the mark, that didn't translate, had a good story, but the director failed. I think that'd be a great way to go with it, Herbicide. And I agree with you. I love watching old movies. I'm not as big on some of the new movies. There's something that's been lost in the movie making process. Chris says The Running Man was a good movie too. King wrote the book, but under a different name, I think. Yeah. Well, was The Running Man King? I thought The Running Man was somebody else, but I maybe that is him. Mist was a good movie. Man, that was dark, wasn't it? It's one of the darkest endings ever. Brian Myers says, saw the trailer for New Running Man last night. Looks pretty good. It's a movie. We'll see. Kieran says, can we get over the running back curse? I'm tired of watching guys go down and washing out. We've had too many since Marshawn. So I call it the beast mode curse, Kieran. It's a real thing. And I don't know what we're going to do. I think we got to go get a live chicken. We need to bring a voodoo priestess in from Louisiana. I need an old priest and a young priest. We might have to bring out the big guns for this one. He says it's funny because he's more of a trade piece than a walk candidate. Some team would trade with. Which is a big boy, by the way. I think you mean Walker on that. And you might around the trade deadline, if your team's not competing, do that. Pops. Yeah, I could see him having some trade value. I mean, you're right about that, King. I think if you're in a position of contending and you're rolling and you're still at a point where trade deadline, you're maybe 6-4 or 6-3, whatever, 5-3, whatever you're at that point. You've got a winning record, that you're probably rolling with what you got. But if you walk into the deadline and you're more 2-5, that's definitely going to be one of those pieces that you're likely to probably try to move in a trade deadline deal, for sure when it comes to Walker. Yeah, I think you're right about that. I do think, though, that once you get through this year, King, the only way that you'd be able to move Walker in a trade is that you'd have to franchise him after this season. And maybe the team's willing to do that. Maybe they'd be willing to do that at that point. But John's just been so hesitant to use that franchise tag, I would think not. DJ Dallas is still in Arizona, Herbicide. Not getting a lot of carries down there, but he had a kickoff return for a touchdown in week 1 last season against the Bills, and he's been a pretty good kick returner, especially with the new rules. Seems to fit him well. Chris says, yeah, I looked it up. King used to write under the pseudonym Richard Bachman to write Running Man. Oh, okay. There we go. Man, he was prodigious. As a person that's written books and how hard it is for me to crank a book out, to imagine like that guy would every 6 months have a fully fledged book done. That's tough. Addicted to Hawks says Cujo was a Saint Bernard, but still that growling dog fear is a real thing. Funny enough too, you guys look at right here. You see this little dot right here on my left side, right there. Just a little tiny mark on the side of my face. When I was 4 years old, I was sitting in the room in a living room with a Saint Bernard, and the dog I was watching TV, we're at some stranger's place, I don't know, whatever, and the dog just bit right into my face. Straight Cujo dog got me. Left his mark on me. Yeah, Richard Dawson was so good in the first Running Man. That's the part that kind of threw me off with the new trailers. The new guy is in a lot of stuff, and he's good. He is. But Dawson just had that whole smarmy, broadcast. He just played it. He drove a lot of that movie. He did a lot of that movie's heavy lifting. Kieran Killen was the first to build his own LLM, and it's all just AI. Ooh. Chris is just don't want them to remake Christine with a classic iron. I cringe at the demolition of old cars, maybe a Prius. Yeah, that is the tough part, isn't it? A lot of these movies will buy those old classic cars and then destroy them. And we're getting to the point where there's only so many of them left, huh? That's a good point. What's Freak Bob says, what's your prediction on Seahawks record based off schedule? I think this is the easiest schedule that we've had in about 6 or 7 years, Bob. I think the team's also been moving progressively into a better and better place over the last 3 years. So 3 straight seasons that you've had a winning record. You made the playoffs one of those years. The other 2 years, you're the first team in NFL history to not make the playoffs with back-to-back winning seasons. So I think you're taking another step forward this year. I think that this has been a slow process of maturation here for this team, but that it is coming to fruition. So I see an 11-6 record and how this will play out this year, Freak Bob. When there's a lot of potential to even get a couple more wins beyond that. So I could see a kind of anywhere between, to me, this team 9 to 12 wins feels like about the right place. And it's both of those factors, both being how good I think they'll be and then just how easy this schedule is to work with. Oh, Kieran says that was sarcasm, laughing out loud. Yeah, sorry, my bad. It's a large language model, LLM. Oh, okay, there we go. I'm a little slow late in the stream, you know. Brain starts to slow down a bit. Smeek Mole says, how many off-ball linebackers are we keeping? I don't think you're keeping more than 4. And one of them might be the kid that was the edge last year that we transitioned into off-ball linebacker. So one of those guys is technically could be kind of an edge combo too with it. But my prediction is that you're going to pull one less. You're going to have one less inside linebacker than you carried last year on the roster, and you're going to have one less wide receiver on the roster, and that's going to be so you can carry one extra active quarterback and one new fullback on the roster. Addicted to Hawks, Richard Dotson was my second favorite character on Hogan's Hero. Fräulein Helga was always number 1. Fräulein. I love that. Fräulein. I can't speak it, but wait, that's the one word the Germans pronounce, which is actually kind of a cool word. Everything else sounds like it's getting stuck in their throat. Addicted, Brandon, holy F about the dog biting you. I was tempted many times to make a steak cocktail for the neighborhood hound. Yeah, and you know, the part that I remember about it, I was really young, but I also remember the fact that I being like so much in disbelief about the dog attacking me because we're in the living room. I'm not even petting the dog. I remember I'm watching like a Lone Ranger show and the dog's sitting next to me and there like are adults in the other room. And then the dog just, you know, like, what the God? Psycho animal, but I guess that's why King picked the St. Bernard. You wouldn't think St. Bernard is being the most vicious, you know, you like pick a pit bull or a Rottweiler. But those St. Bernards, man, ill-tempered. I guess when they're not saving people out of avalanches, they get pretty angry. I don't get it. All right, well, we got 3 good hours knocked out today. I think we will do a little bit of a wrap-up here. And we've got, you know, a little bit of news, as they say with this. We are going to be doing a meetup, Fast Fashion, 1723 First Avenue South. That is where you're going to locate it. So if you want to hear, take a little screenshot here of it, and you guys can screenshot it if you want. So we are going to be on the day of the scrimmage, which is the 2nd. I believe it is. We'll be doing it on the 2nd or whatever it is. We're going to be doing the meeting out there by Lumen Field. It's going to be me, Bryce Coots. We got Mookie Alexander there from Field Goals. We're going to get Corbin out there with Locked On Sports. We're all doing a grand collab crossover meetup in the bar in person. Fast Fashion, 1723 First Avenue South. That's going to be the location. So if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you out there. We're going to be doing a live stream show from the location at 2:00 on that day. And I'm trying to get this up here so you guys can see this. 1 second. I'll get this up. Boom. So I'll just kind of show you guys this, the address here up over my head if you want to put it down, if you guys want to show. I would love to see you guys out there. Really looking forward to this event. Really looking forward to going down here for training camp. I'm going to be out there for a couple of the days of training camp right at the end. So I will be out there for we'll be out there for July 31st, season ticket only holder day. I'll be out there for the 1st of August on Friday at 1 o'clock. And then we have the Saturday for the scrimmage day that I'll be in there with the remote session. I'm going to be going to the game. I'll be hanging out after the game, probably one of the bars out, the local area out there. So I'll try to keep you guys up to date as there. You want to probably be following me over on Twitch. I'm at SeahawksNest over there because I can provide some updates to everybody as far as where we're at and what we're doing on that side of it. I'll be doing so as far as the community post on YouTube too, but that way you're at least getting the direct notifications. But coming to Seattle here in the next week, we'll be doing shows out of the hotel room there, so it'll be a little bit more shotgun style. We won't be having our normal mic I'll be rolling with, so it'll be a little bit of touch and go. I don't know how good the internet will be there in the hotel, but we'll be giving you daily updates. I'll be letting you guys know what I am seeing out there in practice, what we're hearing there, and I'm really looking forward to being able to meet up with some of the other content creators out there here in Seattle and to chop it up with them. It's going to be a lot of fun. So please do come out that day. Join us out there, Fan Fest. A lot of good reasons to go down there anyway. You got the Mariners baseball game. If you want to go see a baseball game, then go hang out with us before or after on that. Love to see you guys down there. Really appreciate Dan Viens for kind of getting the machinations of this thing rolling and getting this going together. As I think this will be a lot of fun. Lots of fun. Yeah, I'm not a chew toy, right? Herbicide. I don't know what happened with that freaking thing. I don't know what happened with that thing. Do I have TikTok? I do have TikTok. I'm what am I under on TikTok? Hold on, let me see here. But I've only got just some of the shorts posted up there. I'm at the Hawks Nest TikTok on TikTok. So, but I just post mainly just the shorts over there. I don't do a lot of extra action. I'm trying to expand out on other stuff with that, but it's hard to get everything posted in every spot. They all have little different things. Addicted time and dates on Dino's. I'm going to be over at Dino's directly after practice on both days. So we've got Saturday. We've got the 31st practice is going to be an early one on Thursday at 9:45. So that's a season ticket holders day. We'll probably be doing an evening thing at Dino's on that day. Like a 3 or 4 o'clocker there. And then Friday, 1 o'clock is practice. Practice be over and ended out. We'll probably do another 4 o'clock thing on Friday for Dino's as well, if you want to join me on either of those 2 days. So let's call it tentatively, and I'll definitely be updating you guys as we get closer to this. But if you want, we'll do a general meetup on both Thursday, Friday at Dino's. I'm going to just be in there kind of working on the laptop, having a beer, just enjoying myself a little bit as far as just love being back in Seattle a little bit on that. And then Saturday, we got the meetup day on that. So that's how we will roll this out. And yeah, that's about it. Just want to let you guys know too. I don't know if I always let you guys know, we do have another whole channel here we've got created that's been rolling along. We're well over a couple thousand subscribers over onto it. It's the Hawks Nest Clips channel. I don't have it linked here in the description, but if you do want to look for kind of clips of these shows, we're going to be doing a lot of that. I've been building this channel up bit by bit by bit. We're going to be doing more of that this year. So do please get subbed up over there over on the Hawks Nest Clips side of things over here on YouTube, as there's always a heavy draw for people to say, hey, I can't get through the 3 hours of the podcast. Do you have stuff where you chop this up a little bit more to make it more manageable to get through? So if you're looking for that, we've got that over on that side of it. Please do sub up over there. And then the Seahawks Twitch. I got the Seahawks Nest on Twitch. I might be back there on this evening here. We might pick that back up over there. I'm trying to win the national title game for my University of Washington Huskies, my 3rd national title game. I ain't gonna lie to you though, my defense, I can't quite get it together. So we're gonna see if I can pull that off tonight. I thank you guys for watching today. If you can for me, please do hit that like button. It's a big benefit to this channel. It helps me out majorly by you guys doing that. I know it seems like a small thing, but it's a major thing that pushes us out onto YouTube. Algorithm helps us show over there. Jeff Jennings, Be Calm, See Clearly multiple times over. Chase Stern, Y2K, Dogzilla, Feed Me, Randall McDaniel, Washington Fist Quest. You guys are awesome for all of your support today to the channel. I really appreciate it, as you guys do help to keep the lights on here. It's going to be one hell of a year. We've got NFC West Roundtable. I'm heading out to training camp. We're going to have shows every day through Monday through Friday for you during the week. We got membership benefit shows coming out to you too as well. This is going to be running hot and heavy as ever this upcoming season. So ride with me in this pocket as we might, for the first time in a few different years here, actually have ourselves a quantifiable, certifiable, legitimate football team that's ready to go out there and make some noise. And if that's not something to get excited about, I don't know what is. So you better have your eye on the prize here. You better be ready in your heart for what is going to be a fantastic Seattle Seahawks season. And here where we finally get to see this team break through. So don't you forget, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks.